Natalia,
Okay.
can you please do roll?
Yes, Steve Stowe.
Here.
Okay, Jennifer who? I do she's in. Okay, Elizabeth Chan.
Here.
Sorry, I'm here.
Okay, Vito is in. Marie Brugueras.
Here.
Gara Amin. Yona Isufi.
Here.
Ah, hi. Li Ping Jiang.
Here.
Maya Rosenblatt. Joyce C. Kevin Zhao. I know I saw Jennifer. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Natalia. Before we get started with tonight's business meeting, there's just a few announcements I would like to make. First, just a reminder that the meeting is a public meeting and it is being recorded. Second, I want to announce that there are Spanish, Arabic, and Mandarin interpreters here tonight. You should see video of these interpreters. Thank you very much to them for being here and providing this important service to our Spanish, Arabic, and Mandarin speaking populations. They will now announce instructions for attendees who may wish to dial into the lines at this time. Would our Arabic interpreters please introduce themselves? Is our Arabic interpreter here?
This announcement will be in Arabic. السلام عليكم على الراغبين بسماع الترجمة باللغة العربية. الاتصال على نمرة التليفون 347-966-4114. بعدها الضغط على رمز 160-843-312. بعدها علامة الهاشتاج أو الشباك. مرة أخرى على الراغبين بسماع الترجمة باللغة العربية الاتصال على النمرة 347-966-4114. بعدها الضغط على رمز 160-843-312. بعدها علامة الهاشتاج أو الشباك. على الراغبين بسماع الترجمة بصورة واضحة وضع الصوت على الصامت أو الميوت لكي تستطيعوا سماع هذه الأمسية بصورة جيدة. سوف نقوم بالإجابة على أسئلتكم واستفساراتكم في نهاية هذه الأمسية. مرة أخرى على الراغبين بسماع الترجمة باللغة العربية الاتصال على نمرة التليفون 347-966-4114. بعدها الضغط على رمز 160-843-312. بعدها علامة الهاشتاج أو الشباك. شكرا. Arabic announcement has been completed. Thank you.
Thank you. Could our Mandarin interpreters please introduce themselves?
Okay, 各位家长，大家好，还有亲爱的贵宾，我姓陈，Aaron Max Chen， 我是今天你的中文翻译。然后如果需要翻译电话专线是在347-966-4114，然后密码是271852488井字号。再重复一次，中文专线的翻译347-966-4114，然后密码是271852488井字号。请各位家长如果用电话来听今天的会议的话，请务必关静音，因为背景音乐很大的话，很多甚至可以听不清楚目前开会人员的主持人所讲的电话。OK， 非常感谢你。OK, I'm completely finished. You can move the next step.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And finally, could our Spanish interpreters please introduce themselves?
Buenas noches, yo voy a ser su intérprete en español junto con mi compañero Félix. Quiero hacerle saber que si usted quiere estar en la línea de conferencia en español, puede marcar al 347-966-4114 y va a marcar el número de identificación de esta reunión, que es 332-576-987, y luego va a presionar el signo numeral. Nuevamente, el número de teléfono al que usted va a marcar para escuchar la traducción en el español en vivo es 347-966-4114. Y el número de identificación de la conferencia es 332-576-987, y luego presiona el signo numeral. Muchísimas gracias. Spanish interpreter is done.
Thank you. Just a reminder, because we will have simultaneous interpretation throughout the meeting, it is very important that everyone tries to speak slower than usual to allow the interpreters to keep up. Third, during the calendar meeting, we will hold a public comment session. If you would like to sign up for public speaking, please sign up on the form. The form is located online at the CEC website and will also be posted in the chat. Natalia can post that in the chat. Okay. So the agenda for tonight's business meeting is a short one. We're just going to approve the minutes from the February business meeting. And then if there are any issues that any council members would like to discuss for the business meeting, we can do so. So Natalia, can you please share the minutes from the last meeting? Are there any changes to the business meeting minutes from last month? Okay, hearing none, the minutes are approved. So that ends the scheduled part of our business meeting. Is there anything council members would like to discuss? I know we have a variety of projects we're working on. Maybe I'll just for the benefit of the council members, because this won't all come up at the calendar meeting, but I'll just quickly go around and sort of talk about the different things that are in progress right now. And please, everyone, step in and sort of help me if I forget things. But one thing, and I know she's her voice is not what it should be tonight, but Jen has been spearheading an effort to get more liaison outreach going, and I understand has reached out to a few of you, which is great. And we're going to try and really, and I've texted with a few of you as well. So we're really going to try and get more liaison meetings going with all members of the council, especially those of you who haven't done it in the past. There's also Jen is also, I'm speaking for her tonight, but next month she can give a more comprehensive update. Jen is also working on a bylaw review, and one of the suggestions that, well, I'll talk about it. I don't know if it'll make it in the final, but I've thought about moving the business meeting after the calendar meeting, so we start the calendar meeting early. So we start the calendar meeting at 6, which is the more public meeting. And since the business meeting sometimes is very short, we will just change the bylaws to have the business meeting after the calendar meeting. So in theory, if we start the calendar meeting at 6, the public joins at 6, maybe it runs 2 hours, 2.5 hours. So we finish at 8:30 or 9 instead of 9:30, 10, 10:30. And then we can do the business meeting very quickly after that, because right now the business meeting starts at 6 and always runs until 7. Any thoughts on that as a potential idea? That's just one thought I had, and I'm sure Jen has a lot more ideas for the bylaws that we'll talk about at a later point in time. But I just wanted to bring that up as something that we might be doing.
I think it's a great idea. This is Marie Vergaris.
Hey, Marie. Yeah, it makes sense. I've been on other council meetings, and most other ones, I think, actually do it that way. It doesn't always prevent the calendar meeting from going long when there are issues, but it gives you a lot of flexibility. You can just cut the business meeting short if you want to at the end. So we'll probably do that.
I also think it's a great idea, especially the last 2 meetings have been extremely long. So that's
Right.
a great call.
Definitely. Okay. Marie, do you want to just sort of share? I mean, I don't know if there's too much concrete to update on, but the legislative event is what you're thinking there.
So the update, unfortunately, I haven't gotten a response and I've sent the email twice. I'm going to try to do, actually during this meeting, I'm going to send an email that I'm just going to reply to a prior email. Maybe they get it this way. There has been an instance where I have emailed and my email did not reach them once before. But I have not seen 2 of my emails not reaching them. So that's strange. But I will basically, at the last meeting I mentioned holding the legislative event at the new building of the Diker Heights. PS, I'm sorry, the name escapes me now. The number escapes me. But
127.
Yes, 127. And the principal, Agatha Alejandro, was definitely a very friendly face to the SEC, and she's just a wonderful principal all around. So I thought of asking her. So I'm pushing for a meeting this Friday to see whether we can do the ask in person. And Jen, from what I understand, Jen will be coming with me.
Yeah, that's great. And Natalia, can you just share the screenshot of the budget, the current budget? I just want to understand what we're working with right now, the one that Anne Marie just sent today. There it is. Natalia, can you zoom in on that at all? So right now we've committed 1,250 out of events. We had to pay the balance of the Qualtrics invoice out of the events line, but we still have, just for Marie, your reference, and Jen and everyone's reference, we still have a nice budget. 5,400 minus 1,250 So we still have over $4,000 we can work with on the budget for that event. So we should definitely be able to get something done. I was just on I was listening to another CEC's call recently, and they have a legislative event of their own in their district. It's one in Queens coming up, and they were talking about planning it in April, and they were just going through getting the money sorted out, which we've largely already done. So anyway, this is the kind of thing CECs can do and can really try to. I think it's a big benefit to the district, and so Marie, that'd be great. I'm sure Principal Alejandro is probably just busy, but she knows you, she likes you. Hopefully you can get over there Friday.
Yeah, I'm pushing for it.
Yeah.
And, our budget, given that, it has decreased, I do think, we definitely have a nice budget, but I was trying to work, within the constraints so that we have actually, so that we don't have to pay for a space.
Right.
Besides, given the difficulties of getting a non-approved vendor reimbursed.
Right.
And given the advice of a prior CEC member who has done those events numerous times, just doing it at the school also allows the school to be showcased. And I just think, doing these legislative events as a matter of course, and having a schools rotate to be a showcase school at those events, I just think benefits everyone.
Yeah, this other place, I agree with you, and let's do whatever works, whatever we can get done this spring. But this other district said they had a private space that donated the space for the event, which I just found that's a serious connection there to get someone to just donate the space for an event like that.
That is probably someone on the CEC who has a
Some
straight connection
right.
with a
Right.
catering hall or something.
Right. But anyway, and I think if we just look at our budget here, we're still, I know a bunch of, and just a reminder to all the council members, remember you can submit those of you who have not waived your reimbursement, please feel free to get those forms from Natalia, if you haven't already, to get your reimbursement for broadband and for childcare, if that's applicable to your attendance at the meetings. I see we still have a lot of unclaimed reimbursement. I think the only ones who waived it were myself, Marie, and Kevin, if I'm not mistaken. And the rest
And
of
those who don't need the reimbursement, if you would consider donating part of it.
absolutely, yeah. If anyone would like to, I feel good about our budget for the event, but absolutely, if anyone just wants to donate part of the reimbursement, they won't claim it. We'll apply it.
Okay, yeah, the other one is me, and actually I think I'll have a better place for hosting those events after April.
After April, Kevin?
I can secure a place. I mean, what time is this kind of event? Is it usually daytime on a weekend or a weekday? I mean, it's like the weekend, but is it evening hour or early during the daytime?
Usually it's a breakfast. We've also talked about an afternoon, like a coffee afternoon reception, but usually it's a breakfast before school, but we could also do it in the afternoon. And yes, during the week.
I was also
Okay.
told that it should be a Friday because legislators are not in Albany on a Friday. So a Friday breakfast is something that's been done in the past, where someone, was able to successfully get legislative representatives.
Right.
Okay. Yep. And that place will be free. I mean, it's not a restaurant, but I can get it for free, and we just need to get a catering service there.
That's great to know, Kevin. Follow up with us. Send it to Marie. Email to Marie, please.
Okay. Yep.
I had another, what was my, Natalia, can you remind me the P card? Have you had any cases where you've needed to use that? That's for sort of short-term expenses, right?
Yeah, I mean, I use the P card maybe like twice the first year I had one, and I've never used it since.
Okay. Can we transfer that money off if we needed to?
You can, but the thing is the
Deadline.
remember the deadlines.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Could we
like if
use-
you want to move the money off the P card, do it now.
What's the deadline again? I know it's like any day now.
Yeah, I think it's actually I think it's today or tomorrow. Because I got in like two different numbers. Like one thing said, I think it had said today, but then another person had told me Friday. And I mean, we could probably do like a last minute change.
Well, Natalia, what could we, like, if we had a P card and we had one of these breakfast events and we wanted to just go out the day, the day before and get a bunch of drinks, for example, get a bunch of drinks, or could we do that?
I mean, technically, yeah, because it's for like small purchases. So
Right, like
Yeah.
it was always used in the past, I thought, for like meetings where you had to get like pizza before the meeting for dinner or something, right?
mhm.
And it's in that line of the same line as, well, yeah, I wonder if the fact that it's in instructional supplies general.
Well, the P card is it's online. So basically, once you have that, you can purchase things within reason. So you won't need to like if you order from instructional supplies, you have to go into FAMIS and like certify it that you got the order and all that. So the P card, it's a credit card. So you can just, use it for small purchases up to the limit.
Okay. So it doesn't seem like we need to bother transferring it now. It seems like we'll be able to use it if we want to use it.
Yeah.
And then instructional supplies, that's like your office budget.
Yeah.
Can you put in for a new printer?
I don't think I can, because while we have the time, the thing is it has to get here by June 30th.
Oh, right.
They're all everyone's backed up with orders, and so it's been hell for people just getting supplies.
Okay. And again, this is all has to be done through the DOE system. You can't just go and get reimbursed if you go purchase it somewhere. Okay. Okay.
Especially me, like DOE does not want to have to reimburse administrative assistants. So I did that once and had a hard time getting reimbursed for something.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the equipment budget, same deal, right? That equipment budget at the top, that would have to, you would have to
move money out of equipment, because since I can't get the printer, like the only thing I do like purchase ink for, but that comes out of instructional supplies. So I think if you want to use the equipment line, you can.
Natalia, do you have any way of looking up confirming when the deadline is on?
Hold on, let me stop this share.
Take a look there. I'll talk, while you do that, I'll talk about the, just so everyone's up to speed on the hearing from last Friday. Interrupt me anytime, Natalia, but last Friday I attended and spoke at the hearing on mayoral control. And I shared an email with everyone, but just to give a very high level overview of what it's all about. For anyone who doesn't know, mayoral control is up it expires in June. The governor has proposed extending it for 4 more years. So on Friday, the state Senate and Assembly had a joint hearing to hear from stakeholders, parents, advocates, Chancellor Banks was there on what changes, if any, should be made to mayoral control. And it was all day. There were probably 15 different panels, and there was a lot of interesting, we're all still trying to get more familiar with Chancellor Banks and what he believes and what he thinks. And as I emailed you all about, there's a lot of interesting things that he said. He, of course, supports mayoral control. He believes the benefits he cited are things like community schools, the highest graduation rates in history, expanded opportunities for multi-language learners and AP classes, better ability to quickly direct resources to schools that need it. And he also pointed out that because of mayoral control, and I completely agree with this, it enabled them to be very quick with their responses during the pandemic. That's sort of a perfect example of when you would really need strong mayoral control. He talked about the PEP. And for a lot of you who are new, you're probably not as familiar with the PEP, but it's basically the citywide school board, and the Panel for Educational Policy is the name. And Chancellor Banks's first meeting on the PEP went until about 1:30 in the morning. And I was on that meeting too. And he was irate at how long it was. And he's as he said on Friday, it's very disrespectful to parents. These meetings go on a long time. There's a lot of talking. There's a lot of, usually a lot of agenda items, some of which are controversial. And so the meetings really tend to be a 5-6 hour ordeal. So he wants to work on changes to that structure. He said a lot of good things about parents and parent engagement. And he said he will not create policies if families feel they have not been part of the process. It will not happen with me as chancellor. He said the level of access to my administration is and will be unprecedented. I'm meeting with him, and myself and a number of others from other city councils are meeting with him on Thursday. And so we have again, this never happened with for myself and sort of others that are in my group. We've never had a chance to sort of meet with the past chancellors. Virtual learning. He's very big on this idea of trying to use virtual learning where it might make sense. And there's not a lot of detail yet, but he did talk a lot about the idea of a few thousand students maybe using this if they're better off at, if for whatever reason virtual learning works better for them, and also for teaching subjects that it's hard to find staff for. But again, that's very much to be determined. That's sort of a pilot program that Mayor Adams has talked about, and Banks, of course, now will explore. Like I said, he talked a lot about the parents' role, trying to get the parents a big role in policymaking. He talked about giving more parents more influence in the superintendent hiring process. His exact words, I'm not suggesting that, I'm saying that is what we will do. He said parents will have a major voice in everything in their district. He also did talk a lot about empowering superintendents and principals. He's eliminated the position of executive superintendent, and he wants to empower superintendents with more responsibility and resources. He wants superintendents, in his words, to be able to provide all the answers parents need without having to go up the chain of command. And he wants to provide principals more autonomy at their schools, which I really like that as well. And then one of his pillars.
You have a question. The elimination of the position of the executive superintendent, you said that he has eliminated it. So where basically has that taken effect already? And where did those, I guess, executive superintendents go?
Yeah, good question. I don't know if it's taken effect. He said they will try to, he didn't commit to, he wasn't committed on this, but he said that, of course, they will see if there's other places in the system for them to go. But he was very clear that this is several $1 million in budget money that is going to be moved closer to the classroom. And what he said is if some of these individuals can be transferred into roles that support the actual classroom activity, it sounds like he might be open to it. But in his words, he's examined the position. He doesn't believe it adds value. It was created by former Chancellor Carranza, and he's doing away with it. So I imagine it's imminent. I'm not sure. I haven't heard anything more specific than that, Marie.
Thank you.
And I like his pillar. You know, he talked a lot about, like I said, giving principals autonomy, focus on schools that are successful, and repeat what they are doing at other schools. And then a last point of his that I really, really like, he's talked a lot about, is a career focus in education. In his words, gives kids a sense of why school matters. Why are they learning the things that they're learning? He said he wants to engage the business community in ways that we've never done before. He wants to do the same with governance and civic education, try and help kids understand why they're learning what they're learning, and try to sort of illuminate pathways for them. And I also really like the talk that the statements he's made about this is beyond our K-8 world, but this is just, you know, it affects at the high school and college level, focusing more on alternative tracks to four-year college. If there's vocational, technical training, trade schools, teaching students these kind of skills, not everyone needs to go to four-year college, is my belief. And that's something that it sounds like he's definitely thinking about as well. That's all I will say about that. Natalia, any questions from anyone on that? And so there's sort of next steps with this. Another big focus of the day was whether this process of renewing mayoral control should be linked to the budget, because right now it's linked to the passage of the state budget. And so that kind of, in the eyes of many people, it prevents a fair, thorough assessment of mayoral control. There's so much pressure to get the state budget done that all the emphasis is just on pushing that through. And as a result, there's not the time taken to fully examine mayoral control. And there were a lot of other speakers pushing for an immediate end to mayoral control, or maybe a 1-year extension or 2-year. I'm more on the page that we need to keep it for a few years. I don't think ending it now would be a good idea. I don't think as much as all of us are committed, I don't think we are ready to take over, or the PEP is ready to take over managing the day-to-day of the New York City school system. But there are many speakers who are pushing for that and want that. So
I think that while I agree with everything you said, the only thing I would, I guess, be cautious about is the 4-year extension, because I think, and it goes for, you know, any place of power, if somebody is assured that they will have, say, for a long period of time, it gets them to be complacent.
right.
So perhaps given an extension for 2 years is a better
Right.
way of going about it than for 4 years.
Yeah, no, it's a point well taken. And several made that point, like, you know, his term is up in 4 years. Let's give him something, you know, if you make it a 3-year extension or a 2-year, then he's incentivized to do a good job because he'll be running on it. But if he has it through the full 4 years, you know, there's less incentive, to your point, Marie. Yeah. And it remains to be seen. This is up to, it is up to the state legislature. Governor has recommended it, but it's up to the state legislature to approve. And there were some I think Senator Jackson, if I remember right, was more on the page. I think he was one that I remember explicitly said it should be a shorter time period. Senator Lieu, I don't recall what Senator Lieu said, Senator Mayer. And those are sort of the 3 key people on the state education committees, but and I am trying, we had a resolution last meeting if you guys recall, the resolution to revise part of mayoral control to give CECs more influence in the superintendent evaluation process. And that's something that gets sent to, I sent it to our senator, Senator Granardis. I have not heard anything back as to whether he supports that or not. But I'm planning to follow up, and also I'm planning to follow up. There's a number of other channels that we can take this to hopefully at least get people to see it, the right people to see it. Okay. I think that's all I will talk about for now. Anyone else have anything they want to discuss? Natalia.
Okay, so I found the email with the deadlines. Fortunately, because the way it was sent, I can't just like save the image. And so I have to go in through our email. So
You can't just see the deadline, like,
here. Because I tried to save it and it saves like HTML, and then I tried to open it and it just trying to open up the email
That's fine.
again.
yeah, but that tells us what we need, right? Am I seeing Wednesday? Tomorrow is the deadline?
Yeah.
So should we just
Oh,
move some?
Today's Tuesday. This is incorrect because today's the 8th. Tuesday. They'll usually try and
Well, we
get
could do it
in
today.
last minute.
Can we do it today? Or no?
Tonight, no one's to approve it. It's already 6:37. Everyone's left for the evening.
Right, but if we transfer it today and then tomorrow, let's say we still have tomorrow. Maybe
What happens
we're-
is I have to put it in put in the budget request with Anne Marie tomorrow. And then it'll take like a day for it to show up. If it gets in tomorrow, I think we should be fine. Because like I said, they usually try and get everyone in, even if you do put in late,
Yeah,
as long as it's not, 5 days after the deadline.
let's try. Let's just do it. What's the worst that can happen? They say no, right?
Yeah.
So can you pull up the budget again?
Okay.
And I'm thinking, does everyone agree that that equipment line makes the most sense? Natalia, you sounded like you would have really no foreseeable need for that equipment line item. Is that right?
Yeah, the only thing I think I would need would be instructional supplies, and that'll just be for like anything else for the
Sure.
office.
Let's make a motion. So I guess the proposal, everyone, council members, would be to take the equipment line item from the budget, $2,144, and transfer that into the events budget. So that would give us a little over, it would give us a little over $7,000. We were about $7,500, which is probably more than enough for an event, but it would be very comfortable to have. Actually, no, it'd be about 6,000 because we've spent 1,000 of that.
Yeah.
Any questions on that before we make a motion to approve it? Make sense to everyone? Cool.
Yes,
So I will propose a motion to transfer the entire balance of the equipment line item into the events line item. So transfer $2,144 from equipment and place it in events. And is there a second on that motion?
A second.
And then Natalia, this is a roll call vote, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
So I guess we've just had a motion to actually call that. We don't need two separate votes here, right, Natalia? Yeah, we're just doing
No,
this.
you just need the motion because you have it was Marie, right, who seconded it?
Yeah, I think Elizabeth did.
Elizabeth?
Yeah.
Okay.
So let's have a roll call vote on whether to make this transfer. So if you're in favor of making the transfer, you can just say yes. And if you're opposed, say no or abstain. Talia, can you do that?
Right, Steve Stowe.
Yes.
Okay, Jennifer Hu.
Yes.
Okay, Elizabeth Chan.
She said her voice doesn't work, so
That's right.
maybe she can check.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. so Vito Labella. Vito, if you want, you can probably just send it in the chat. I know Vito can't speak either. Marie Brugueras.
Yes.
Okay, guys, not here. Yona Isufi.
Yes.
Okay, Li Ping Zhang.
Yes.
Okay, Kevin Zhao.
Yes.
Okay. 7. Let's see what Vito says. Vito says yes. That's 8 yeses.
Nice. The motion passes. Anything else, guys, or should we take a 20-minute break here before the calendar meeting starts?
So I don't need a vote, right? Because they didn't ask my name.
Oh, Joyce. Yeah, Joyce is here too.
Oh.
Or can you get Joyce's vote, Elizabeth?
Yes, Joyce, I'm sorry, I didn't realize you were here.
Well, she's, can you pronounce her name in Mandarin? If you can pronounce her name in Mandarin, she can vote.
Joyce.
Tell me Joyce, it's fine.
你同意吗？
Steve, I'm here too. I voted yes as well.
Hey, Vito. And Joyce, you voted yes?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Okay. Cool. Okay, great. So that's 9 yeses.
Motion passes. I will now make a motion to conclude the business meeting and come back together at 7 o'clock for the calendar meeting. Is there a second?
Second, Elizabeth Chan.
All right, all in favor? Aye.
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 See everyone back at 7 o'clock.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Vito, can
Yep.
you please do roll call vote, roll call?
I can. Just, okay, Steve Stowe,
Here.
Jennifer Hugh. I saw her come in. Jennifer, you there? Okay, Elizabeth Chan. Vito's here. Maria Burgaras. Gada. Can you hear me, Steve?
Yes.
Who just responded? Was that Gada?
Oh, Vito ask, can you hear?
Yeah. So,
I say yes.
okay. I thought I saw these people here in the participant. Jennifer, are you here? Jennifer Hugh?
Yeah, sorry.
That's okay. Elizabeth, are you here?
Yes, I am.
Thank you. Marie, I'm sorry. Gada, I mean. Gada?
Gada, actually, I think Gada's excused tonight. I communicated with her today. She's excused.
Thank you. Li Ping Yang,
Here.
thank you. Yona Asufi,
Aye here.
thank you. Maya Rosenblatt. Maya,
I have not heard from Maya today. I don't know if anyone else has.
Kevin Zhao, you here?
Yes.
Hey, Kevin, how are you, sir? And
No problem.
Joyce Z.
Yes, I'm here.
Wonderful. So for the record, we're missing Maya and Marie, unless do you see her in the participant list?
She was just here at the business.
I know,
meeting.
right? So did
Yeah.
I thought I saw her as well. Okay, well, we'll leave it open. When she pops up, we'll put her in. Thank
Yeah.
you, Steve. Back to you.
Yep, thanks, Vito. Okay, once again, good evening. Welcome everyone to the CEC 20 March calendar meeting. Before we get started, a few announcements. As always, we have Spanish, Arabic, and Mandarin interpreters here tonight. You should see video of these interpreters. Thanks to them for being here and providing this important service to our Spanish, Arabic, and Mandarin speaking families. They will now announce instructions for attendees who may wish to dial into the language lines at this time. Could our Arabic interpreter please introduce yourself?
السلام عليكم. على الراغبين بسماع الترجمة باللغة العربية الاتصال على رقم التليفون 347-766-4114 بعدها الضغط على رمز 160-843-312 بعدها علامة الهاشتاج أو الشباك. مرة أخرى على الراغبين بسماع الترجمة باللغة العربية الاتصال على نمرة التليفون 347-766-4114 بعدها الضغط على رمز 160-843-312 بعدها علامة الهاشتاج أو الشباك. على الراغبين بسماع الترجمة بصورة واضحة وضع الكمبيوتر على الصامت أو الميوت لكي تستطيعوا سماع الترجمة بصورة واضحة. سوف نقوم بالإجابة على أسئلتكم واستفساراتكم في نهاية هذه الأمسية. مرة أخرى على الراغبين بسماع الترجمة باللغة العربية الاتصال على نمرة التليفون 347-766-4114 بعدها الضغط على رمز 160-843-312 بعدها علامة هاشتاج أو الشباك. شكرا. Arabic announcement has been completed. Thank you.
Thank you. Would our Mandarin interpreter please introduce yourself?
给各位今天参与中文翻译的家长我们有中文翻译专线电话是347-966-4114，密码是271852488，请示好。我今天是PS20小学等于说形式力上的一些会议，然后再次请各位家长如果要透过这个专线，你一进来的时候，请把你的麦克风关静音，因为背景声音嘈杂，很难清楚的翻译给各位参与的家长知道。还有再重复一次，今天有中文同步翻译专线347-966-4114，然后密码是271852488，请示好。Okay, the Mandarin is complete. Hold the announcement. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, could our Spanish interpreter introduce themselves?
Thank you. The following message will be provided in Spanish. Buenas tardes a todos. Nosotros seremos sus intérpretes, la intérprete Linda y su servidor Félix. Vamos a estar interpretando esta noche. Para escuchar esta conversación en español, por favor, marque al 347-966-4114 e introduzca el código 332-576-987, símbolo numeral. Si desea, puede permanecer en esta reunión desde un dispositivo y conectarse a conectarse a la línea telefónica para escuchar la interpretación desde otro dispositivo. Solo se le pide de la manera más atenta silenciar el micrófono en ambos dispositivos. De nuevo, el número que puede marcar para unirse a la línea y escuchar la interpretación en español es el 347-966-4114 e introducir el código 332-576-987, símbolo numeral. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a reminder to everyone, because we will have simultaneous interpretation tonight, please try to speak slower than usual to allow the interpreters to keep up. And then, as always, during our calendar meeting, we will hold a public comment session. If you would like to sign up for public speaking, please use the form located on the CEC website, or the form, Natalia will post it in the chat. and you can use sign up to speak that way. We will also take comments from participants on the language line. So during the public speaking session, if you're on the Arabic, Mandarin, or Spanish line and you would like to speak, let your interpreter know, and we will check with the language lines. And finally, if you're calling and using your phone, you can press *9 and Natalia will unmute your line. Okay, that's all for the administrative items on the agenda. I just want to take a moment and this welcome a few individuals that are here with us tonight. As always, we're glad to have Superintendent Dr. David Preto here, Family Leadership Coordinator Bill Chin. I also see regular Sergey Chuprik from City Comptroller Brad Lander's office here. I also see Maya Elfont from Senator Andrew Gernardis's office here. And I apologize if I'm missing anyone, but we welcome all the interest in our meetings as always. And please feel free to sort of share any thoughts that you have. We'll allow time during the meeting for public speaking, and anyone can participate. And we love to hear what our elected officials and their offices are thinking. So the agenda for tonight's meeting, we'll approve the minutes from the last meeting. We will have Patricia Payne give the Fair Student Funding presentation. And then we will have the superintendent's report, my report, and then public speaking. So without further ado, Pat, are you there?
Minutes.
Oh, right. Always forgetting the minutes. Natalia, can you share the minutes, please? any changes to the calendar meeting minutes from February's meeting? Okay. Hearing no changes, the minutes are approved. Now on to new business. As I mentioned, first order of business, we welcome Patricia Payne, Senior Grants Officer, who is here tonight to do the annual Fair Student Funding presentation. Pat, are you there? I saw her. She definitely joined. at some point. Now she's disappeared. I saw her name briefly on the list, but now it's disappeared again.
I see her. I think she's just logging on to the sound.
Pat, can you hear me? We could have, Superintendent, we could have your report now if that works. I'm not sure how long. I'm not sure. Does anyone have any insight as to what might be holding up Pat here?
It looked like it might be a tech issue because I saw her log on. I saw her name and a phone.
Yeah, same.
I'm happy to do my report first and give her time to log on.
Let's, in the interest of time, I suggest we do that. Yeah,
That's totally fine.
See if
get ready.
So one more check. Pat, are you there? Pat Payne?
I
Okay,
don't see her on the list right now.
I don't either. Okay, go ahead, Dr. Prato. The floor is yours.
Okay. All right, so I'm just going to share my screen. So good evening, CC20. It's good to see everybody. I'm going to provide an update on the district. Just want to thank my team, Dr. O'Brien, Sean McLean, Bill Chin, who's here with us tonight, Sylvia Jasinski, and Michelle Way for supporting me and the schools in the district. I just want to shout out some celebrations and events in March. Today, I just want to wish all women out there, it's International Women's Day, so I just wanted to celebrate and acknowledge that today. This Friday, March 11th, is International Social Emotional Learning Day, and just really proud to have one of our principals, Principal Jane Kapitanakis of PS69, being celebrated and having a SEL Day event coordinated through BCO and Central at PS69 this Friday. Really happy for Principal Kapitanakis, and also thanking our principal, Chris Ogno, for sitting on a panel to speak on SEL structures and systems as part of a larger citywide panel on supporting social emotional learning this year. This Friday is, March 14th is Pi Day, definitely a big event in our schools celebrating math, and particularly middle schools and Delphinaire Elementary schools as well, so that's coming up. I just want to acknowledge that Purim is going to be celebrated this March 16th. This is also a parent-teacher conference day, so if there are any families who are celebrating Purim and need to reschedule or otherwise, please contact your school, your teacher, your principal, and they will be able to coordinate rescheduling a date that works for your family. And if there's any concerns, please reach out to my office. St. Patrick's Day is this coming up March 17th, and finally this week in the New York City DOE is Civics Week. So schools are engaging in a variety of activities celebrating civic engagement of our students and of our families. Also, it's been a couple of years, but we will be administering the New York State exams. So just a reminder, because this is coming up at the end of the month, the ELA exams for students in grades 3 to 8 will take place March 29th and March 30th. And then the math exams for our students in grades 3 to 8 will be taking place on April 26th and 27th. Just a reminder, we've reported on this last month, but just a reminder that this Friday, high school applications are due. If there are any families who need any support with completing the high school application process, including submitting that application through a variety of means, including through your school's guidance counselor, as well as at home, please reach out to your school if you have any issues or concerns. But again, high school applications were extended to be due this Friday, March 11th. Just an update on some COVID-19 vaccination town halls that the DOE is hosting. These town halls have just recently been scheduled for March 14th and March 16th. These town halls are designed specifically for families of students aged 5 and 11. And these will be held March 14th from 6 to 7:30 p.m. in English, Mandarin, Spanish, and Arabic, and on March 16th at the same time in English, Spanish, Cantonese, and Bangla. Starting tomorrow, flyers will be backpacked home from your child's school. And as was announced last week, and I just want to reiterate here, there is an updated face covering policy in the Department of Education. So effective this past Monday or yesterday, March 7th, face coverings are now optional indoors and outdoors on New York City public school grounds and on school buses for all K through 12 students and staff, with a few exceptions. Please note that while wearing a face covering will no longer be required, anyone who chooses to wear a mask may continue to do so. And I really want to shout out and thank again our students, teachers, and staff and principal at JHS 62 Ditmas, who produced a really, really extraordinary brief video highlighting students and staff demonstrating a very respectful, inclusive, and positive approach to this update in the face covering policy. I sent it on Twitter every time I could, and what has also been blasted out in other media circles. It's a great approach and one that we're promoting across all of District 20, celebrating everybody's option to wear a mask or not wear a mask. It's up to you, and under no circumstances is anybody going to be questioned or otherwise not treated respectfully based on their choice to elect to either wear a mask or not wear a mask. I just want to, there are some continued requirements for face covering. This is for continuing for folks who are returning from 5-day isolation from a COVID-19 positive result. So from days 6 through 10, they do need to wear a face covering that's a well-fitting mask. Early childhood programs continue to require face coverings for students and staff. This is including pre-K programs and pre-K students who are attending school in a community school. These are our K-8s or K-5 schools that do have a pre-K class. And we still continue to wear masks in medical rooms and in the nurse's office. And then finally, I wanted to provide the district with an update on our progress in the academic screeners. So this is a high-level overview of district progress in reading as measured by the iReady assessment. Just for a reminder that the iReady assessment is being used with all District 23rd through 8th grade students in reading, and then with all K through 8 students in math. And what this graph shows is a comparison between the results from the beginning of year assessment that was administered in late September through October, and then the results of the most recent assessment, which just concluded at the end of February. And you'll see that in all areas we have been able to demonstrate some growth and progress. So at the very bottom, you have a total count of students who are in those 5 different levels that are measured on the iReady assessment. So in the starting from the left, the mid or above grade level, we have now 6,484 3rd through 8th grade students falling in this category, and that's up from 4,293. And then the next one down is early on grade level, which is still on grade level. So combining the 26% and the 19% together would constitute the total number of students that we would consider on or above grade level in the district currently, as of March 8th. And then going down to the yellow, 27% in that 1 grade level below, we do have 2,719 students considered 2 grade levels below, and then 4,056 students who are 3 or more grade levels below. We will administer this assessment one more time at the end of the year to be able to have a full picture of the progress that children made throughout the school year in reading as measured by this common assessment. And then I'll just also provide an update on math. So this assessment was given to all K through 8 students in the district with very, very small exceptions. So we do have, we're also demonstrating growth in all areas as measured by this assessment, same measures. So we had significant growth in students who were mid or above grade level from 3,792 that has increased to 7,262. The early on grade level has also increased from 4,483 to 5,805. We have a decrease, it's a smaller band of yellow, but we also have smaller bands of red, meaning that some of our children who were 2 or 3 grade levels below have moved up to now be 1 grade level below. So we're very encouraged by the results that the children are making progress, and want to really, really thank all of the work that our teachers, paraprofessionals, guidance counselors, social workers, CBO staff. We have a lot of people working in the schools, our assistant principals and our principals for being able to continue to support and be able to also monitor the progress of our children as we move towards the final third of the year. So I'm really excited and encouraged by these results, and we look for even better results as we get at the end of the year in June, but I'm very encouraged by what we're seeing and looking forward to continuing to support our schools in helping our children meet grade level and exceed grade level. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And that concludes my presentation, but I'm definitely happy to take any questions from the council.
Thank you, Dr. Prato. Can you, I didn't note it, but I would like to know what the ELA scores for the proficient groupings, what were those? I got math total is 43%.
Oh, here, it's right, 26 plus 19. So we're looking at 45 currently.
And how does that stack up? You know, you and I have had several conversations about this, but how does that stack up compared to the looking back at the fall assessments and then thinking about the three scenarios, right? If students show no additional growth, if students, the stretch goal, and then typical growth. I'm looking at it here, actually. I can look at it now, but so for math, it looks like the projection from the fall for proficiency in math was 47% by the end of the year. So does that mean that means 47% by June? Is that how the iReady forecast tool works?
iReady forecasts right now. So right now, iReady forecasts if students don't show any more growth, and we just stop the year right now, that we would have 40% of students be proficient. They project if there's a typical growth, that if what is happening continues to happen, we'll have overall rates of 52% proficiency. That's what they're projecting.
Okay.
And then if, you know, they have something that they call stretch growth, which is like if amazing stuff happens, which is undetermined by us, but because this is a new tool that they're floating out there, that there's the potential for 59% proficiency in math. That's what if we hit that stretch growth. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, and those numbers got updated from the fall numbers, right?
Yes. Yeah. So that they update every time the assessment is administered, based off of how the kids are doing.
Right. And if I'm looking at this right, it sounds like for stretch growth in the fall, stretch growth in math gets us to 61%. Just FYI. So it looks like the target's been lowered just a touch to 59% for that's stretch growth. And you said typical growth would be
52. That's what they're, yeah, that's what.
This is interesting because they showed 47%. Okay. Anyway.
It's a new tool, so I'm not like, this is the first time I'm ever using it. So like, as we, you know, look at it at these different, you know, places, you know, you're seeing it change at the same time I'm seeing it. So it's interesting it's interesting as a tool, and we'll see how it plays out in the actual exams. But I think it's an interesting tool to look at.
And what's a specific example of something a school might do when they see their their numbers on this? Let's say a school is behind the district average. What's like a specific one or two examples that they could do?
What schools do with this tool primarily, what they primarily do is use it as a method to determine the types of skills and strategies and content that children need to work on, and what groups that they can put them into, what groups of kids need to work on similar things. And then also it gives schools information on what kind of prerequisite skills can be helpful to prepare children to perform in that place. So if they're, below grade level in a particular skill, it will show them particular things that children need to be able to do in order to demonstrate that skill or be ready to engage in that skill. So those are some things that it does. And it also provides some resources for children to actually engage in with their teachers. We don't use it as a primary curricular source. Like, it's not something that there isn't like an iReady class. There's not a lot of that going on, but it also does have those resources. But it's primarily used for a diagnostic tool as an initial screener. This is like a universal screener. Like, this is something that we're going to give to everybody, and then based off of that, principals, assistant principals, assessment teams, teachers will then determine if additional assessments and we do administer additional assessments to get more targeted information, or we also use it for the grouping capabilities and for the prerequisite skill capabilities. It really helps teachers and principals move along that initial kind of screen of what we need to know about our kids before we get real targeted. So it's a helpful tool.
Yeah. And so like within a particular class, a teacher could, are teachers, principals and teachers getting this data by
Absolutely.
class? They're getting it by class?
So a teacher has access to, a teacher can see their class.
Okay,
Yes.
okay, interesting. And so they could group them within the class.
That's
Gotcha.
exactly right. So they can group them in the class, and iReady will also suggest groupings for the teachers, so they can see the program will automatically place children in different groups, based off of different skills that the diagnostic tests for.
Okay, gotcha.
Steve, I have a question.
Go ahead, Vito.
Thank you, Doctor. I was very impressed with that. How much training do the teachers need to be able to truly utilize all these tools? And who's setting that training up?
Great question. The more training, the better with anything. And different teachers and schools in the district have different kind of levels of familiarity. When I came in as a superintendent, 22 schools already utilized iReady in some way, shape, or form. And then last spring, every school piloted it as a diagnostic. iReady, through Curriculum Associates, provides the training for myself, for principals, and then for the administration of the assessment, as well as the use of the tool. So, and there's ongoing training that we partner with and coordinate some, district-wide training, so that the certain aspects specifically around the administration of the tool, and then coordinating to learn about new updates like the groupings feature or the prerequisites feature. Will coordinate with iReady to ensure that there's a date and a time for everybody to engage. And then iReady will also record all those trainings and provide them to all the principals and schools, so that schools and principals can follow up with their teams and enable their entire staff to view afterwards. iReady also works directly with schools and coordinates trainings for their staff on a request basis. So they'll customize or tailor trainings based off of the request really of the principal and the assessment team. So they do provide a lot of support for schools, not just through my office.
What about, is there something that the district could offer, like per session to teachers who go to extra training, or is there some motivational tool to really make sure that the teachers buy into this? Can per session money, I guess my bigger question is, can per session money come from the district or just from the principal?
Principals typically allocate the per session for teachers to engage in those types of activities. The district has not posted any per session positions for it, nor are we really funded at this time to be able to do so.
Okay, great. Thank you, sir.
No problem.
I wanted to ask two questions. Since we're going maskless, are we having a budget to clean the school still? Like making a priority to keep those classrooms clean and disinfected?
It's a great question. It's not maskless, so students, staff, principals still have the option to wear. So I've been in schools since yesterday. There are still students and staff who are wearing the masks. And there are some students and staff who are not, and it's mixed really across the schools. So far, it's very new change. I am not aware of any changes to the cleaning protocols. So the cleaning protocols, as I understand, are still in place as they were prior to the mask change.
Okay, and my second question is, are we going to have a free summer program this year?
We are going to have summer school. We have not yet learned of the details of the summer program. That's a great question. As soon as we have more information, I think right now we're just in the place of identifying sites where summer school will happen. But when I have firm information on what summer school will look like, I'm definitely going to make it widely available and report on it.
Okay, and also, can we ask that these summer schools have an arts program, since, we've been talking about arts performing school and some students not having the opportunity to get performance related, techniques and teachings and lessons.
I will definitely escalate the request for an arts enrichment option for summer school.
Okay, thank you.
One question, a follow-up on masking, Superintendent. What is the DOE's rationale for the under 5? I know there are stories on, I just haven't read anything yet. I know it's out there, but why are they requiring masks still for kids under 5?
My understanding is that that students who are 5 and up, this is my understanding, I didn't set the policy, but my understanding is that since there's not a vaccine available for children who are under 5 yet, the vaccine has been approved for emergency use authorization for children who are 5 years old and up. I believe that is the overarching rationale.
Okay, even though kids under 5 are some of the lowest risk out there.
I didn't set the policy, so I don't know. I'm just speculating.
Yeah, I'm mostly stating for the record, but any other council members have any questions for Superintendent?
Hello?
Hey, Yona, go ahead.
Okay, hi. I want to follow up on the summer question. If you can find out if there are any services that are going to be provided during the summer for students that receive special services such as speech therapy, because I know that a lot of kids have missed out on regular sessions for speech therapy or OT or that kind of services. Is there something going to be done about that? And also because from my experience in 2021, the summer service was really lacking on any type of additional or special services.
So in summer school, it's a great question. So in summer school, students who have related services or instruction provided on a 12-month basis will receive those services. That happens every year. The grand majority of students with special needs who receive services through the DOE receive them on a 10-month basis, so they receive them from September to June. So typically, some services aren't provided to students who, attend a summer program. For children who have not received services that they're entitled to through their IEP, that's different. That will be coordinated through the school's SBS. So having those services provided and the plan for doing so will be handled at first and primarily through your school's SBST. Through your school, the teacher, the school psychologist, social worker, and the principal. And if that can't come to some kind of resolution, then you'll work through through the special ed office to coordinate those services. That, as far as that being a larger plan for the summer, I'm not aware of a plan like that. But if there are any families who have services that have not been provided this year for whatever reason, they need to definitely reach out to their to the coordinator on their school's SBST, the school-based support team, and their principal to be able to put in motion a plan for how those services are going to be made up and rectified.
Okay, sorry, if I can just follow up on that. And I'm just bringing this, I don't know who I can talk to, but I know that the disruption due to COVID for the past 2 years has definitely impacted the students. So I know that letters have been sent out about makeup sessions or things like that, but because of the staff shortages, there weren't really, not all the schools had the availability to have like an after school program or extra hours. And I am sure you are aware that the process for any child to even get evaluated, even at pre-K, is like mission impossible. Because I am going through the paperwork and I know that it's pretty much impossible to get anything done in a timely fashion in a regular year, let alone during COVID.
So you're referring to the special education recovery services. So so all schools have been working and are required to engage in special education recovery services, SERS. If there are any families who have not been able to have that rectified, that's being monitored. That's being monitored closely through Central and the special education office. So if there's any instances where there's a family who have not been able to be offered recovery services that are connected to not having been able to have services provided because of the pandemic. That's something that's the same thing, need to definitely reach out to their principal because that was something that all schools had to do. As far as, so if it's you or if it's anybody else, they should definitely reach out directly to their principal to find out what special education recovery services, because all schools had to make them available for any children who had services that were not provided during the pandemic. As far as the pre-K piece, I think are you referring to the Turning 5 cycle where pre-K children, our families are having their children be evaluated for kindergarten?
So I'm speaking on behalf of a friend of a couple of people at the pre-K here that when they are four-year-olds, I believe, at
Yes.
4-year-olds, okay.
And we call it Turning 5, yes.
Okay, sorry. Okay, yes.
It's okay.
For that, especially because of COVID, the whole, like, because you have to find a place where they would agree to do the evaluation. So there is a lot of delays. So for example, if a parent goes through the process now, they might not get an evaluation in a month from now. And that would put us in April or May. They wouldn't get, it's very rare, not a lot of people get the 12-month service that you mentioned before. Like most people will get it through the school year.
That's right.
So let's say if somebody applies now for the services or to do the evaluation, they will basically not get any service, or they might get very few sessions, which will not help the child, because then July and August, they will get nothing. And then they have to do another evaluation process when they get into kindergarten. So I don't know if there's like a special, group that deals with the specifics, but I don't think it's fair to, children missing out because the evaluation process just takes so long. And because also not a lot of kids during the pandemic especially have been to daycare. So a lot of parents, they don't even realize if their child needs to be evaluated. So I think that it would be a great idea if somebody can, if people can get together and actually, talk about this a little bit further, because I think it's an issue that a lot of parents who have started their 3K or 4K programs that are being introduced to the process. And I think the timeline is really skewed because you might not get anything done, even if you do it right now. I don't know. I'm sorry for that.
No, it's okay. So I just want to make sure we're talking about the same thing. So the Turning 5 process, which is, the structure that's in place for children who are currently 4 years old and will be 5 years old and attending kindergarten in the fall, that evaluation process is just starting right now. This is the same time of the year that has always happened. So from now until the end of the year, school-based support teams as well as the central team will be engaging in Turning 5 evaluations. So making those determinations, and it's a pretty lengthy process. Not lengthy for how long an individual parent needs to go through it, but how many evaluations end up happening based on the district. So I say all that to say, the school-based support teams and central committee on special education will be doing Turning 5 cases all the way through the spring, towards the end of the year. And in rare instances, we'll have to engage in some of them in the summer, but the Turning 5s do have to get done so that children who are starting kindergarten will have those evaluations complete.
Okay, and if you can please, what is then I guess there must be another name if you want to get services through pre-K. What is that called?
That goes through the Early Childhood Committee on Special Education.
So, okay, so I guess it's almost like talking about both of them, because what happens to a child?
You know what you can do? Or you can tell any family, they can reach out to my office and speak with Bill Chin or Sylvia Jasinski, and they can connect any family with the Early Childhood Committee on Special Education.
I think this is like, and I don't know if other parents have gone through this, but okay, I will reach out in detail, because I think it's a real issue, and it's a disfavor that's being done, especially to families who did not put, their kids through daycare before attending pre-K. because the pre-K just started in September. So it's, I think a lot of time is lost for any child to get services at 4-year-old. So I will reach out to you. Thank you though for taking the
Nope.
time and explaining.
No problem.
Superintendent, this reminds me, a topic that's often come up in the district is the compliance with the evaluation process for any student with an IEP. Is that data sort of compliance with it's a 60-day window, right? Is that data available? Because I know there was a controller's report a number of years ago that showed District 20 had sort of an above average level of non-compliance. I think that report got updated at least once, but is that data regularly available from the district, from the DOE? Do we know how we're doing on a month-to-month basis in terms of getting evaluations done within the required time period?
Yeah, I'm regularly updated on how the district is doing in terms of our overall compliance rates. I can at our next meeting, I'm happy to get the next update. But we've done compared to the city, we've done well with our compliance rates. I know that there was a data point a couple of years ago that was referred to when I came in as superintendent that was low. I also know that during the year that I came in and when we finished, we actually finished very high that year. That was compared to schools, compared to districts across the city. And we have been consistently above the city average in terms of compliance rates. So, but I'll get a hard number in a couple of different areas for the council.
And yeah, and maybe dovetailing with the conversation from earlier today with DLT, some of the data around how students with IEPs are doing. If maybe next meeting, if that could be kind of a focus of your report, that would be great. Just any kind of data. There's also a data point, the % of students with IEPs that are having their programs fully matched, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yep.
So yeah, maybe a collection of this data on students with IEPs for next meeting would be great. Has the second DESA been administered yet?
No.
When does that get administered?
Well, we're just starting to gear up to prepare for that. So it's this spring we'll be administering the second DESA screen.
And second and final, or is there a third?
It's just going to be 2 administrations. So this will be the second.
And what
second and final for this year.
Yeah, and what conclusions, if any, came from the first round? Were there any? I know we can't talk about individual students, of course, but were there any aggregate conclusions that you arrived at?
Some of the things that were interesting, we were able to see around some of the kind of the broad categories were the number of children who were kind of quote unquote targeted for instruction, meaning that their screeners demonstrated like a need for some support in one or more social emotional competencies. So seeing that data was interesting, and I think really helpful for schools to be able to identify individual children and to think about like how they can go about coordinating support for them and being able to document that support and kind of put it together. I think that was one takeaway that was really helpful from DESA. And I think that in some cases it really aligned with some things that schools already knew. And I think in other cases it really brought to light some things that may be concerning about children that may not have necessarily been focused in on at that point of the year. So I think that overall from that perspective, it was a success. I think something else that we took away was around what we were finding in the social emotional competencies themselves. So like what were some of the overall patterns across the district that were showing up in the screener as need for support. The single number one competency that was listed in practically every single school. We've been having one-on-one meetings with principals and discussing the DESA results with principals in these one-on-ones for the mid-year. And optimistic thinking was the one social emotional competency across schools that was consistently kind of scoring the lowest. So we had a lot, it's a piece of information that not necessarily had been tracked in the past. So we thought that it was, especially considering the last 2 years that we've had, the nature and the tenor of discussion that has been happening in the nation and in the world, and the level of connectedness that children have had to their parents and you know, and the connectedness that parents have had with the community through, you know, through not just social media, but also through, you know, Zoom meetings and stuff. Like, I think it was, you know, something that has been like a point of conversation to think about when like looking at the impact that it's had on kids. It's been an interesting conversation. Yeah. So, and also the idea of optimistic thinking itself, like what that means in terms of a social emotional competency. So that was another kind of like big takeaway that we've had in terms of a consistent piece across the district.
Absolutely. What kind of things do you do to instill more optimistic thinking in schools?
It's interesting. So one thing we look to is our social emotional programs that we use. So for example, Sanford Harmony is a social emotional curricular resource that a lot of schools use. And so we'll kind of focus in and target on lessons that lift up optimistic thinking. There are some other school culture structures and approaches that really promote optimistic thinking. Goal setting behavior, goal oriented behavior is another social emotional competency that was an area of concern, not as big as optimistic thinking, but was another one. So there are some school structures such as the Leader in Me, which is the elementary and middle school structure from the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I don't know if you're familiar with that book by Stephen Covey. So he has so they created a whole school system and structure called the Leader in Me. And that school structure really kind of has a lot of opportunities to be able to lift up optimistic thinking as a topic of conversation at the least, and something that can support children. We also have had a lot of focus on vocabulary in the district. So there's been a lot of words of the day, words of the week, words of the month, themes. So one thing that schools have been able to do is start looking at their social emotional competency data and starting to think about the themes that they're promoting in the school, the vocabulary that they're really highlighting and targeting in discussions, to be able to think about how these things tie to, how these terms and the discussions they're having can tie to these competencies.
Are you guys able to do follow-up? So let's say, and by the way, you don't happen to know the percentage that we're I think you said the percentage targeted for instruction from the screener. That's, you'll sort of look at a group and these need to,
I can tell you district-wide. I want to say it was around 12%.
Okay. Interesting.
Hey, Steve, can I just interject really quickly?
Yeah, please, Jen.
Dr. Pardo, I just wanted to ask if there's any, because optimistic thinking is pretty broad and it's a mentality, right? So I was wondering if there's any coordination with the parents on maybe also having the parents getting involved in getting the kids feeling a bit more positive about their situation and so forth. Because I think it's great that the school is doing stuff, but it'd be also great if the parents had some suggestions too to take home.
So some schools do that. I would say that specifically regarding optimistic thinking and the DESA screen and these social emotional competencies, we're all, Jen, I'll be honest with you, like this is a new thing that we're all doing. And I want to say that schools are learning about how they can use this as a tool to promote, support and, guide students and families. So like we'll see in the coming weeks and months and through this next administration, different resources. And frankly, that's something that not just our schools and the district has been doing. We just had our first discussions around what those results have meant and how principals, their instructional leadership teams, and teachers have been able to kind of think about how to digest this data and turn it back around into some kind of action plan. But we're also partnering with, we do have a central team who has been supporting in connecting to resources and frankly looking to highlight best practices that are already in existence in the district. So, again, like a great example, Principal Kapitanakis, who's going to be, visited on Social Emotional Learning Day on Friday, is one school of many schools in the district that really has a strong structure and coordinated approach to social emotional learning in general. And so are able to look at what's existing already and how they're now tying it intentionally to some of these social emotional competencies that they may be seeing in the school. as well as thinking about individual students who need support. And I see Jane's just come on with her hand up, so if it's okay, I'll ask her
Yeah, of course.
to add on.
Go ahead, please, Jane.
Hi there. So thank you. I just wanted to add to this, where there was a moment ago when someone was asking about social emotional learning and optimistic thinking and how we could really get our children to think about this and how we can get our families to think about it. And so I wanted to just offer that one of the first things that we can do is remember that we have a choice. So teaching children and really as adults becoming aware of that we have a choice in how we can respond to a situation. That's a very important step. A lot of schools here in District 20 have also been using the ruler approach and using the words, as Dr. Preto had mentioned before, about understanding the words that are connected to our feelings. So for example, if we're feeling sad, we have to identify how we're feeling in the moment. And then we can also identify how we can make a change, how we can move from those sad feelings, how we could talk about our feelings, and opening up that space for children to talk and express themselves. So thank you so much. And we look forward to sharing more best practices on our SEL Day. Thank you, Dr. Preto.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, at home, I've been doing the whole name it to tame it emotional stuff and the gratitude practices to try and counteract some of the negative thinking that I've seen in my own kids. But it's great. I think it's great that the schools are thinking about this sort of thing. So my other question is, since you have found DESA rather useful this year, are we going to continue using it going forward?
We're definitely administering it this year. The use of the DESA as a social emotional screener is a New York City DOE initiative. So this is the first year we're doing it. My understanding is that we're going to be utilizing this tool for the next 3 years at least. But I don't know more than that. This is the first year.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
No problem.
We've asked this in the past, but are the questions the same each time?
Yes, as far as I know, the questions are the same each time. It is a beginning and after.
Okay. So for the next, unless we hear otherwise, for the next 3 years, it'll be the same questions, presumably twice a year on the screener.
That's right.
Okay. This is perhaps a tricky question, but I'd like to hear your thoughts on it. The world we all know what's going on in the world now. And there's lots of things where this kind of creeps into the classroom, and this sort of gets into the discussion about politics and education and whatnot. And this has gone on for years, right? The level of discussion in classrooms, we always talk about, we certainly want positive mentality for kids. I'm always skeptical, and I'm always concerned when I hear about teaching about, how kids are oppressed in their day to day. And the country, the nation, the city, whatever is sort of oppressing kids. And sort of that message that no matter what you do, there's a system that's stacked against you. And again, I'm just asking this out of the idea that I fully support everything you've been talking about, but I'm also wondering if this message is coming through in any of the classroom stuff that's going on. Do you think that could be hurting kids' optimism?
So your question is assuming that there's discussion in classrooms that's saying that there's a system of oppression, that might be the thing that's causing the optimistic thinking to be low with kids?
Yeah.
I mean, I can speak to the curricular resources that I've seen, principals' plans, and the actual classrooms that I've been in this year. I haven't seen any of that. I've really seen teachers, designing experiences for kids that are rigorous and frankly positive. It's really been a strength-based approach, like asset-based approach. We've really been pushing that. And I feel like the DOE has done a great job of promoting that approach to the SEAL work that we're doing, and CRSC, really looking at everybody in the room, their background, and their kind of place as an asset to be tapped.
Yeah.
And I've really applauded the not just the principals, but also like the teachers. There's a lot of people, right, in the district. A couple thousand people teaching our kids. They've as a large group have done a great job of promoting that approach, which I would say that would be contributing nothing but positively addressing this optimistic thinking concern. I wouldn't say that my experience in any schools, any classroom discussions would be contributing to a child having their optimistic thinking be negatively impacted.
The state CRSEF includes language that says the schools must point out systems of biases and inequities rooted in the country's history, culture, and institutions, and redress historical and contemporary oppression. And I'm fine discussing this stuff, but I'm just curious if the district is sort of following the CRSEF from that perspective.
What the district has really been focusing on through our CRSE work with principals and instructional leadership teams has been focusing in for the last few months on activities, strategies, approaches, and events that lift up the identities of the children in the schools.
Right.
And that has, really, and that's to bring awareness and celebrate. And it's been really, really positive, and frankly I feel like has really achieved the goal, or led us toward achieving a goal of that warm welcome embrace back to school from the pandemic. Like that has been really successful, and some schools have done, taken work that they already did and amplified it and really made it an amazing time. And then other folks have been able to learn new ways to go about this, which has not just raised the awareness and the celebration, but also provided everybody with a strong understanding of the multiple perspectives that are coming through our building. And that comes from a wide variety of categories, right? And I think that does nothing but really make everybody feel welcome and honored and included, and also provides a lot of different avenues for folks to explore topics, which is something that we'll push forward for as we move throughout the year and going into next year, which does nothing but adds complexity and allows for kids to be able to engage on levels that they may not have been able to before, being knowledgeable of the the backgrounds and the identities of all those in the room and in their school.
Any other questions for Superintendent from council members? Thank you, Dr. Preto, as always. Great presentation. We'll now switch to our originally scheduled first speaker, and I believe she is with us now. Pat, are you there now? And now I'm not seeing her. I saw her.
She's in. It might actually just be the speakers on her computer.
Yeah, I see her here, but I don't see an audio capability.
What should we do?
I think we just move on. What can we do? David, is there a presentation? I mean, this is a mandated, it's kind of a routine compliance-driven presentation, right? There's not a...
Yes, yeah, it is.
Is there a presentation she has? You could just walk us through it?
I think I could do that if she can't get on.
Yeah, does anyone have Pat's number? Natalia, are you able to contact her? And just have her email it to Superintendent?
See.
Here, let's. Okay, I'm gonna get my computer ready to do this. Just bear with me for a second.
Sure, no problem.
Okay. Pat, are you in? Huh. Yeah, because before she was saying that she could hear us, but we couldn't hear her.
I think it's gonna have to come from Dr. Prato tonight.
I think so.
All right, almost there. Okay. All right, can you see the school budgets presentation?
Yes.
All right. Okay. So, Dr. David Prato, I will be doing the Fair Student Funding presentation tonight for school year 22-23. So, this is a pie chart that describes where our funding comes from. So, the DOE is funded by city, state, and federal dollars. This combines total to support our $37.8 billion budget. The New York City provides most of the funding, as you'll see on this pie chart. For 21-22 school year, the city contributes $19.5 billion, or 51% of the total budget. Most of this funding comes from what we call city tax levy dollars. And city tax levy funds are drawn from local taxes. So this is like property taxes, sales tax, and personal income tax. Every year, the mayor proposes the amount of city tax levy funding we receive, and the city council has to pass the budget into law. New York State is the second largest source of funding. For the 21-22 school year, the state will contribute $12.8 billion, which is 34% of the total budget. The state gets its funding mainly from income and sales taxes. Every year, the governor proposes the amount of state funding that we'll receive, mainly based on the number and types of students enrolled in our schools, and the state legislature must pass the budget into law. The federal government is the third largest source of funding. For this school year, the government will contribute $5.3 billion, or 14% of the total budget. The government gets its funding mainly from income taxes. Every year, Congress proposes a budget, and the president must sign the budget into law. The ESSA, or Every Student Succeeds Act, provides the rules for allocating most of federal funding we receive. In addition, the DOE has received federal stimulus funding from the fiscal year 2022 through fiscal year 2025, which will get touched on later on in the slide deck. All right. So where the funding goes. Let's see here. So our $38 billion budget provides daily instruction and support of our 1 million students. The largest share of the budget, which is at 50%, supports district school budgets. These are school allocations. So this includes all dollars given directly to district schools, in addition to associated fringe and pension costs, under the oversight of principals and superintendents. School budgets are used for all instructional expenses at the DOE. $19 billion in school budgets pay for costs that include salaries and benefits for classroom teachers, classroom paraprofessionals, principals, assistant principals, deans, and other classroom and school-based staff, and also for funding for textbooks, computers, materials, supplies, etc. Then there's non-instructional costs, which make up 13%. This supports food, transportation, and debt payments. This pays for non-instructional services that students receive, but are managed outside of the school's budget. The $5 billion is used to pay for costs that include free breakfast and lunch available to all students, bus routes, loan payments on buildings. This is new constructions and renovations, kind of similar to mortgage payments. And then non-district schools comprise 17% of the budget. So these schools include charters, non-public schools, and students with disabilities who are attending specialized non-DOE schools. This covers schools and programs that educate New York City students but are not directly run by the DOE. So this $6 billion allocation includes tuition payments to the early childhood centers. These are the NYSEEKs for pre-K and 3K. This goes to charter schools, students with disabilities who attend specialized schools, and then supplemental services to students who are attending non-public schools. And then student support costs encompass 20% of the budget. These include custodial services, facilities maintenance, and central academic supports. This $8 billion covers administrative costs and instructional spending outside of school budgets. So this pays for custodial and facility needs, keeping school spaces clean and maintained, school safety agents in each building, and academic support costs. So the vast majority of instructional costs are allocated directly to school budgets. So funds allocated to schools are under the responsibility of the principal. Principals, along with their school leadership teams, create the school's comprehensive educational plan based on school-specific instructional needs and priorities. Principals work with their SLTs to create the school's budget, to pay for the instructional program detailed in the SLT, and superintendents supervise the principal in this process and must approve all school budgets and their alignment with the school's CEP.
David, I'm sorry, I have to interrupt real quick. I got a comment in the chat that Mandarin line is silent, and I don't know if I see the Mandarin interpreters in the participant list anymore.
Okay, I can hold off for a second.
1 second.
Yeah.
Li Ping, you can't hear anything, right?
Yeah, there's no sound in the Mandarin line.
And I mean, Natalia, can
And
you?
hi, Steve. I don't see the Mandarin interpreter there. I
Yeah,
don't think he's there.
I don't see him anywhere. Natalia, do you have any way of contacting the interpreters? The ones that might not be here?
The only thing I can do is email translations.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah.
so where did he go? All right, we got to make a note of that. So he's,
Yeah.
what happened if he, technical issues. Okay, so Li Ping, apologies. I guess, let me know if you have questions after. I'm happy to go over any of this stuff. And I don't know, Kevin, can we create a room where Kevin translates?
If we create break room, I wouldn't be able to hear.
Yeah, okay.
That's it.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, we'll have to just go on, do the best we can. Sorry about that, Li Ping, and any others who were in the Mandarin room. We'll follow up and find out what
Who
happened.
are in the Mandarin line?
I'm assuming all I know, Li Ping is the one who posted that there was no one, that the interpretation was not.
Yeah, Steve said that there are 2 people currently.
Okay, well, I
Yeah,
think
there
we'll
are 2
probably,
people in there. There's Katya here from Linguistica, who is presumably managing them. So Katya, if you can tell us in the chat what's up, that'd be appreciated.
so I'm sorry, Steve, should Li Ping tell you what's the issue is?
I mean, I can see 2 people in there currently. No one's
Okay, I
speaking.
think, yes, Stephen, I think it's me and Niping because I just put online, but I didn't hear anything. So that's why I asked Niping, did you hear
Yeah,
anything?
weird. Yes, that's why I'm asking Katya, who's from Linguistica, who is the people that, send the interpreters.
Okay,
So she might be looking into it now.
okay. All right, well, maybe we should just proceed, and I can get anyone caught up later on information. Go ahead, Dr. Preto. Sorry about that.
No problem. Go to the next slide. So Fair Student Funding is the primary funding source for most community school districts. How do we allocate money to the schools? So $18 billion is allocated to schools. $10 billion is allocated through Fair Student Funding. An additional $8 billion, and Fair Student Funding is those tax levy dollars. An additional $8 billion in federal, state, and local funding are distributed to schools through School Allocation Memorandum, or SAMs. So Fair Student Funding. The majority of school budgets are allocated through Fair Student Funding, or FSF. And under FSF, we create a school's budget based on the individual needs of each student enrolled there. Each school's Fair Student Funding allocation is calculated based on the number of students enrolled at each school and the specific needs of those students. Pupils' needs are weighted based on the cost of meeting those educational needs. This budgeting method is called a weighted pupil funding model. For non-FSF allocations, not all school funding is allocated through Fair Student Funding. So some school funding, including our large federal grant programs such as Title I, Title II, Title III, and Title IV, are allocated directly to schools outside of Fair Student Funding. The DOE has approximately 100 separate allocations to schools, each of which is accompanied by a school allocation memorandum, or a SAM. The scope of the SAMs can be broad and their value may vary. So one SAM might go towards hiring a new teacher or a social worker, while another SAM could establish a new summer school or pay for computer maintenance. The written description in each SAM provides information about the background of the funds, their purpose, their source, and how they should be used. And you can find a full list of SAMs online on the DOE's Info Hub. Fair Student Funding pays for K-12 classroom staff and student supports at DOE community district schools. So Fair Student Funding provides for each school's primary instructional program and services. Over 90% of Fair Student Funding supports classroom staff and instructional supports for students. This includes classroom teachers, including arts, gym clusters, quota, or coverage teachers, teacher absence coverage, after-school programs, tutoring, intervention, school leadership, pupil support, admin support, and OTPS, or other than personnel support, supplies and materials. Services funded outside of Fair Student Funding include mandated individual education plan or IEP related services and IEP paraprofessionals. So for example, speech teachers, occupational therapists, and one-to-one paraprofessionals. Then certain specialized programs such as instructional models specialized for students with autism, pre-K and 3K programs at district schools, and charter schools and District 75 schools. So the Fair Student Funding weights, these are the proposed weights to determine Fair Student Funding for next year, for 22-23. Each school will be funded based on their student population. Individual students may be funded by multiple weights depending on each student's needs. As part of your feedback, we hope to hear your input. No changes have been made to the formula weights since 2016-17. So each school receives a foundation of $225,000. The remainder of Fair Student Funding is based on student characteristics and their respective weights, in addition to funding for collective bargaining related costs. For 2021, or for school year 2020-2021, the base weight of 1.00 was equal to approximately $4,220 per capita. This per capita is adjusted annually to reflect changes to the citywide average teacher salary. The basic grade weight is allocated to schools for all students on their audited, this is October 31st, on their audited register, and is aligned to instructional requirements by student grade level with distinct weights for K to 5, 6 to 8, and 9 to 12. Funding for academic intervention, or AIS, is determined by student academic performance when they enter a school, with poverty funding schools beginning in pre-testing grades. So all students in elementary schools, K to 8 schools, and K to 12 schools. Funding for special education is determined by the percentage of time students spend receiving special education services. One weight for students receiving services for less than 20% of their week, another weight funding students receiving part-time services for up to 59% of their week, and the remaining full-time weights depending on student grade level and their primary instructional model of special class or integrated co-teaching or ICT services. Supplemental funding supporting former IEP students in their first year of declassification will continue to support of IEP declassification services through the post-IEP transitional support weight. Funding for English language learners, or ELLs, is allocated based on student grade level, reflecting the mandated instructional services, bilingual versus ENL only, weights for former ELLs who have achieved proficiency within the last 2 years. These are also designated, as commanding on the NISIS lab. These are students who have passed the NISIS lab. And ELLs with students with interrupted formal education or SIFE status will receive their respected L weight in addition to the SIFE weight. And then supplemental per capita funding is allocated for portfolio high schools to support their unique instructional models. Okay, so this is a slide that visualizes how fair student funding weights work if the per capita were $1. So fair student funding needs are determined on an individual student basis. Each student is evaluated for their eligibility based on data in DOE systems. Most fair student funding determinations are based on data in ATS. The weights add up by student, as shown in the example shown here. The weight of 1.0 was equal to approximately $4,220 in 2021-22. In this example, the weight of 1.0 is equal to $1 for demonstration purposes. So in the above example, we have two students, Sam and Alex. Both students are elementary school students. This means they are both entitled to the K-5 grade weight of 1.0, shown in the graph in orange. If they were middle school students, they would have a weight of 1.08. And if they were high school students, a weight of 1.03. Both students are English language learners. This is shown in green. Sam is an elementary school multilingual learner enrolled in a standalone English as a New Language or ENL program. Therefore, Sam is entitled to the K-5 ENL weight of 0.40. Alex is also an elementary school multilingual learner. Alex is enrolled at a bilingual program at his school. The school has appropriately coded Alex as enrolled in a bilingual program in the DOE scheduling system, STARS. As such, Alex is entitled to the K-5 bilingual weight of 0.44. Both students are students with disabilities requiring special education classroom instructional services. This includes special education teacher support services, or SETS, special class or self-contained, or integrated co-teaching, or ICT. So SAM's Individualized Education Program, or IEP, requires less than 20% of SAM's instructional program to be in an IEP setting. Therefore, SAM is entitled to the less than 20% special education weight of 0.56, which is shown here in yellow. Alex's individualized education program, or IEP, of 21 to 59% of Alex's instructional program is to be spent in an IEP setting. Therefore, Alex is entitled to the 21 to 59% special education weight of 1.25.
Is everyone in bed?
Which is shown in yellow.
Good night.
I'm sorry, I think someone came off mute for a second. And then finally, both students are students in poverty. Therefore, they're entitled to the Fair Student Funding Academic Intervention weight of 0.12, which is shown in blue. When you add all the pieces together, Sam's Fair Student Funding needs total a weight of 2.08, while Alex's needs total 2.81. So in this example, where the base weight of 1.0 equals $1, Sam would generate $2.08, while Alex would generate $2.81. So in 2021-22, in this school year, when each weight of 1.0 is equal to $4,220, Sam's weight of $2.08 is equal to approximately $8,800, while Alex's weight of $2.81, or 2.81, is equal to approximately $12,000 under the Fair Student Funding formula. So this year, Fair Student Funding is fully funded for the first time ever. Thanks to federal stimulus funding and a long-awaited commitment to fully fund state foundation aid in accordance with the Campaign for Fiscal Equity, this year, Fair Student Funding is fully funded at 100% for all schools in fiscal year 2022 and will be in fiscal year 2023. This is a tremendous achievement made possible by our partners at the state and federal level. This $600 million investment impacted 1,100 schools and 700,000 students in the 21-22 school year. Each school receiving new funding in 21-22 received a combination of local funding and federal stimulus funding, while the foundation aid formula is being phased in as part of a 3-year phase-in plan. The DOE has received over $7 billion in federal stimulus funding from FY22 through FY25. So along with fully funding Fair Student Funding, the influx of essential federal stimulus resources will allow us to expand programs that have been proven to be effective, boost much needed services, and restore programs we know are valuable to students. Major initiatives funded with these new resources include investing in early childhood education, including special education pre-K and 3K, expanding the community schools program, adding new community schools to provide expanded social, emotional, academic, and extracurricular activities and services to students in the highest needs communities. Expanding PSAL, the Public School Athletics League, to additional schools. Expanding mental health supports and hiring 600 new mental health workers, including social workers and school psychologists. A historic investment in the mental health and well-being of our students that will build on our strong foundation of social emotional learning and mental health supports. This enables us to respond to the effects of a global pandemic and its impacts on our students and their families. Increasing IT support. Support so all students have access to a digital device and ensuring all students become fully fluent digital citizens for the new economy. As part of this commitment, the DOE will guarantee a device available for every K-12 student by delivering thousands of more devices, train educators in advanced computer science, launch a technology capstone project for all 8th grade students to demonstrate digital literacy skills. The budget increases help desk support, continuation of wireless broadband services on more than 500,000 devices purchased for students in response to the pandemic, and builds out our digital learning hub. Providing critical programs and related services to students with disabilities in grades K-12, including physical and speech therapy and more. The pandemic has had a disproportionate impact on our students with disabilities. The Academic Recovery Plan will make every resource available to better support students with individualized education programs, or IEPs. It extends from the DOE's youngest learners to students preparing for graduation by launching after-school and Saturday programs for all students with IEPs to receive additional instruction and related services, expanding the committees on preschool special education, or CPSE, to expedite evaluations and IEP meetings, providing eligible students age 21 and over with continued instruction towards receiving their diploma or other exit credential, or to receive consultation to facilitate post-secondary plans for college and career readiness. Expanding family workshops and information sessions through our Beyond Access series, which supports families of students with disabilities. And then finally, addressing learning loss through increased academic support, which could include using assessment results to accelerate learning, targeted services for high-need students, and other initiatives. Each focus area includes dedicated supports for multilingual learners and immigrant students to address their unique needs and support their academic progress and language acquisition. So school budgeting timeline. So February, March. So based on initial budget estimates of city and state revenue, the DOE presents the CECs with the proposed fair student funding weights for the coming school year. And then in April and May, the Panel for Educational Policy votes on the proposed fair student funding weights for the coming school year. Then late spring, the DOE releases budget allocations to schools. In June, principals, along with their school leadership teams, propose budgets for the coming school year. In July, superintendents must certify alignment between school budgets and comprehensive educational plans for the upcoming year. In September, we have a new school year beginning. More information is available online about fair student funding and school budgets. So you can find the following online on the DOE's Info Hub under Reports / Financial Data and Reports. So here you can find detailed information about each and every school budget allocation in the form of a school allocation memoranda, or SAM, a programmatic guide to fair student funding, as well as how each federal fair student funding allocation is calculated for each school. You can find the following online on each individual school webpage under Reports / Budget and Finances. So for each individual school webpage, you can find detailed information on the school's budget based on the different types of funding schools receive, and detailed information as to how the principal has budgeted for the current year, including the number of staff positions and other planned spending. If individuals are presenting on an internet-capable computer, you should feel free to switch to the website and try to access this information. I'm going to stop my share because that is... So at this time, I can take questions.
And I do you see...
Dr. Preto, can you hear me?
Hi, Pat. How are you?
I have to apologize. I was having huge technical difficulties here, which I'm not sure why. If you go to the, but I'm going to file this under better, and I apologize to everyone. I'm going to file this under better late than never. If you go to the next slide, Dr. Preto. So the Central Department of Education would really like feedback from the audience here tonight. And so they would really like the comments and questions to be directed via email or phone so that they can be presented to the Panel for Educational Policy. And you can do that by emailing them or telephoning them directly. And this slide here gives you an email address and a telephone number to do that. And those questions will be answered. The relevant questions will be answered by the PEP. As long as you provide them to them by April 26th. Okay. And as I said, you can do that either via email or by phone, and that information is up right now.
Got it. Pat, what are the kinds of things that the PEP wants to hear? I mean, what can you explain? And for, a lot of the members of the council, they're new. The PEP is sort of an abstract entity. People know it exists, but I'm not sure everyone here.
Any questions on this presentation that the superintendent so excellently made this evening about the upcoming Fair Student Funding budget for the 22-23 school year?
And what will the PEP do with our questions and our information?
They're gonna provide answers to them publicly. They will be responded to publicly. They're gonna put them in writing. They're gonna answer them in writing. I understand that is the, they're going to, the relevant, my information says that relevant question and comment will be available for review on the Fair Student Funding website in advance of their vote, which is going to occur in April. As a matter of fact, it's April 27th.
That's the interesting thing. So the PEP votes on
April 27th.
And what are they voting on? Because so the PEP will vote to approve the DOE budget on April 27th.
That's correct. Yes.
And does the PEP have power to make changes?
That's a very good question, and I wish I knew the answer to that. That's a question you can ask. That should be one of your questions. I honestly don't know. But I will email that question to Central tomorrow and find out. And if I get an answer to that, Steve, I will let you know.
Okay. I have a budget related question, but it might be more for Dr. Pretto and maybe even for one of the principals on the call, but it is very much budget related. And really that's, how are schools doing this year? Because we know that there's been further enrollment declines. I guess first question, have schools been held harmless this year for the enrollment declines?
Yes.
Okay. And so with that being said, is there any, early in the year, I remember hearing stories about schools that couldn't find enough things to spend money on. Is there any kind of aggregate school-wide, district-wide look at how schools are doing financially and whether schools are, all schools are still in sort of a budget surplus? Are there any schools that are, some of the schools with, well, I guess if we're being held harmless, then, are there any schools that are challenged financially? Does that information ever come across your desk, Superintendent?
There's so all schools have a plan in place to use the funding that they have to meet their goals this year, and based off of their different funding sources. Some schools have different levels of resources, I guess is the easiest way to put it, based off of their different characteristics. Schools are funded, like we saw in the presentation, differently based on their student populations. But as far as their individual circumstances as the course of the year, we do work with principals to support them in planning and coordinating their kind of like strategic plan to match up with their budget, as well as support with ensuring that they're kind of, are able to execute the plans. The biggest challenge this year was there's always a challenge with the budget. Thankfully this year, it wasn't that we needed the dollars. The grand majority of schools had the dollars that they needed to execute the plans that they wanted to. The challenge was being able to match it up with staff, being able to have the staff to be able to execute the broad and increased range of services and activities that we wanted to and had the ability to through funding. That was the big challenge, and we've been able to do that this year through a lot of creativity and a lot of continued stepping up by our district staff. That's principals, teachers, guidance counselors, paraprofessionals, and a lot of partnering. There's been a lot of collaboration across the district that's helped that get done as well.
If a school is over budget, do you get notified?
What do you mean over budget?
You're spending more than they're budgeted for.
It's not schools. So the way that they allocate the funding, we saw like they're allocated based off of different audits in their register. So they're allocated funding and based off of the October 31st register. That's where they're going to get their funding, and they work directly with budget directors and their forecasts to be able to set aside funding or to put back funding based off of how that year is going. This year has not been a year where that has been a concern, but that type of work is supported through the budget director and procurement and their procurement points to be able to kind of be proactive and make sure that that doesn't happen.
And this is budget director. Is this different? Pat, is this your department? Would this be the same department, Pat?
I work with the budget directors at the borough office, yes.
Okay. Who's the budget director for District 20?
Her name is Marie Burrow.
Marie Barrow, she would have been here tonight doing this presentation, but she was unavailable.
Marie did the presentation she did present to the CEC last
year.
Yes.
Yeah, I believe she did. Yes.
I believe I remember that. Okay.
Wow.
I'm going to leave it here unless I could go on about this stuff, but I will let it go for now. And any council members, any questions on, and the presentation, a couple of council members asked if we can get the presentation. You said it's online
It will be online, as I understand. Central will be putting that up online on the Fair Student Funding website. I don't believe it's up yet, but I believe they intend to put it up.
Okay. Council members, any other questions on this presentation before we move on?
Oh, yeah, I wanted to ask the Fair Student Funding, they're in control of the lunch money or like free food like the district gets?
No.
Fair Student Funding pays for the free lunch program. That is the office that handles that is the Office of School Food at Central.
Okay.
School Food Nutrition.
But the Fair Student Funding is the one that finances it, right?
Correct, yes.
So like a lot of families in this district is, because of the rising costs of food, they're having issues with paying for food. So are you guys going to be able to allocate money for the people in our neighborhood? Like, because you know how during the pandemic, a lot of families got EBT cards, like for staying home. Like, are we going to be able to get it in the summer?
Well, as you may know, the city opens our schools. We have the free breakfast and lunch programs continue throughout the summer. And we offer those programs throughout the summer so our students and families can avail themselves of those programs throughout the summer months. And I'm sure that will continue this summer as it has in summers past.
But Elizabeth, the EBT cards were not through the DOE and school food. That was through the state.
Okay, I just wanted to see know because All right, thank you.
I have a question regarding the EBT cards as well. Why were they not provided to the charter school students? I have public schools, child in public school and a child in charter, and the public school received it and the charter did not. So I was just wondering if someone can clarify that for me.
I don't know.
Politics, Marie, politics.
The DOE didn't manage them. We didn't manage the EBT cards. That was something done at the state level, so I wouldn't be able to speak on it.
Oh, I see Bill Chin has said charter schools got it just last month, posted in the chat.
Oh, there you go.
We did receive the card, but it had 0 on it, which is why I'm wondering.
might be a thing to follow up with, Marie. Who should offhand, do you know, Pat or Superintendent, who should someone follow up with questions on that? I know it's not a DOE program.
I'm gonna.
Bill just
just
posted
put-
something in the chat.
Yep, you can contact.
You can
You
contact-
give Bill. Yeah, give Bill a call tomorrow.
Contact
He put-
Bill.
Yeah, he put the office number in the chat, and he can help. He said to contact the state, but you can give him a call at the office, and he can support with that if you need.
Thank you very much, Bill.
Thanks, Marie. Unless there's any other pressing questions, I think we should move on since it's 9 o'clock. So thank you, Dr. Preto, for pinch hitting, and thank you, Pat, for coming in at the end.
No, it was all Dr. Preto. Don't thank me.
Thanks for coming in at the end, Pat. I appreciate it.
All right.
I didn't want you to think I wouldn't try.
No problem.
Okay, I am going to run through some items. And just a reminder for the public, Natalia, can you one more time post in the public speaking, or post in the chat, the link to the public speaking sign up sheet? We will get to that after my comments. And are we still have no luck on the Mandarin interpretation? Okay, thanks, Steve. So Mandarin is trying to find a replacement. I'm just going to proceed here. So first off, I just want to remind, if there's any SLT members on the call tonight, please remember to complete your biannual review survey. You should have received a link. And this is the survey that supports the work of the district leadership team. And the deadline to complete this is March 18th. So SLT members complete the biannual review survey. If you didn't get the link, reach out to your principal or to Bill Chin at the district office. On Friday, I attended the hearing on school governance that was held by the state, a joint committee of the state Senate and state assembly. It was a full day of testimony. Chancellor Banks headlined it. I think the most newsworthy item that came out of it was the, as of yet, I'm not sure if I should even report this, but it was in the news. Banks said that there may be last minute changes to the high school admissions. But as Dr. Preto pointed out, the deadline is March 11th. And as of yet, we haven't seen anything official, but Banks indicated he is considering some changes to high school admissions. As most know, we passed a resolution expressing our opposition to the new high school admission policy. And I won't get into the minutia of that right now. Chancellor Banks had a lot of positive things to say about parents' roles in education. In particular, he mentioned he wants parents to help co-create education policy with him. He also mentioned he wants parents involved in to have a stronger role in governance, in particular around superintendent, evaluation, hiring. He made very strong statements about helping parents earn parent trust back in the system, and make the system work for the schools, not make schools work for the system or the bureaucracy, as he pointed out. And I think we've seen that he's already taken some steps to do that by eliminating the executive superintendent position. He spoke very positively about superintendents and principals, giving them more, empowering them more. I think his exact comments on superintendents were, I want superintendents to have the answers for parents and not have to go up the chain of command. I know at times that's been frustrating for our CEC, is to ask, Dr. Preto a question and he has to do what he has to do and sort of go back and get the answer, and it might take some time, or he might not get it at all. So those are overall sort of, it's a new tone that Chancellor Banks is setting that I think is very positive, and hopefully it carries through. It was interesting, he talked about the PEP, and his first PEP meeting went until 1:30 a.m. on that meeting. He was irate about the length of it and sort of the slow pace at which it moves. And he said he's going to look into reforming that structure. We will see. He also talked about his idea for virtual academy. And this is one of, I think, the Mayor Adams and Chancellor Banks is more sort of potentially outside the box ideas, which is continuing with the remote learning in situations where they deem it to be beneficial. There's not many details yet, but he sort of talked about how if there's certain subjects that it's hard to find staff for, it might make sense to have students learn online. Or if there's a number of students who actually, for whatever reason, benefit more from online learning. He's always said this is going to be a very small number, but then he's also said it might be applicable as they learn from the experience and applicable to more schools. So right now it's very much in the sort of the idea development phase, it sounds like, but it's worth sort of paying attention to, I think. And I also, one thing I've heard from Chancellor Banks consistently is that I'm very positive about his focus on career focus and sort of teaching kids, sort of imparting to kids why they're in school and what this is all being used for. And he's talked a lot about sort of helping kids understand why they're learning what they're learning from a career sense. And that falls right into a lot of this isn't rocket science, but it falls into a lot of the goals that I think we should have for a school district. And then on the issue of mayoral control, that was the point of the hearing, and it's unclear right now. There was a lot of speakers who wanted mayoral control ended, not in a year, not in 2 years, but right away. And of course, the governor is proposing extending mayoral control for 4 years. The state legislature has to approve, either approve what the governor's asking for or make changes to it. I didn't hear a lot of state legislators speak on it. One, Senator Jackson in particular, said he favored a shorter term for mayoral control. But so that we have to wait and see what happens with that. I, of course, advocated for our modified, our proposal, our resolution for greater greater parent say in the superintendent evaluation process, but very importantly, without making the sort of unacceptable job security. I do not think CECs, as they're currently structured, should have power over whether Dr. Preto stays or goes. But I do think we should have more influence in the evaluation process. So that was Friday. That was the hearing on school governance. I just want to share quickly the school survey, because I think it's very important that that we're all aware of the school survey, which took a long time to be released, but it is now released. And I'm now going to share my screen, and I'm going to start with the parents survey and then share what the students said. Give me 1 second here. Okay. So these are just the highlights. I'm just going to do the highlights, not all the questions, but this is the annual school survey completed last spring for the District 20. And these are the responses of the parents. And pretty good overall. You know, the categories: building families' capacity as their child's primary advocate, 81%. So, you know, do parents feel like do parents feel like they're well represented when they're communicating with the school district, with the school? And you can see on the right-hand side, New York City, the DOE for the entire city at the elementary school, middle school level. So we can compare our scores to what the whole city does. So you can see we're right in line with that. Building families' capacity as their child's primary teacher, 94%, pretty good there. Inclusive leadership, 95%. Outreach to parents, 94%. Parent involvement in school, 83%. Parent principal trust, 96%. Parent teacher trust, 96%. So pretty good scores from the parents. And then there is another survey for the students, and I am going to, that survey, I'm just going to pull that one up. So the student survey, the only thing that really jumps out on the student survey, and I think that this is something that when we ask all the questions about the iReady and sort of Acadians and where we're going and whatnot, is this academic press category. I think we've discussed this in the past, but I just want to reemphasize it here because we've been talking about it a little bit at the DLT. Academic press was our lowest score. This is just saying that kids in the system think that they're not essentially sort of experiencing a strong emphasis on academic success and adherence to specific standards of achievement. 63%, that's below the city level. I think even though we've talked about this before, I do think it's worth just keeping this front and center as the focus. And I know parents are very interested in sort of seeing how we can make this up. We're past, sort of getting past the pandemic now. Other grades were pretty good. Personal attention and support, 69%. That was lower, but it was also in line with the city. Preventing bullying in the past, that's been a weakness. We're 83%, which is better than the city average. So I'm going to leave it at that because we're past 9 o'clock now. And my final presentation tonight is on MS 936, an update. And let me just get my screen. Okay, so as we talked a lot about at the last meeting, can everyone see MS 936 update, first of all? Can someone just give me a shout?
Yep, looks good, Steve.
Okay, thanks. So I've done some more work and we've gotten a lot of emails. We've had a lot of communication with parents. And I've talked a lot to superintendent and to other stakeholders. And I just thought it would be helpful to share some of, a lot of this is my thinking and I'm sharing it here tonight with council for the first time. And again, nothing here is finalized. We're not voting on this. This is purely, CEC president sharing his work that he's done on this to sort of facilitate the conversation. So a big area of interest has obviously been the background about the school, right? And I've gone into sort of the paper files on the school. And what I can say, and what has come up a number of times, is was this always targeted for South Sunset Park? And there's an SCA notice of filing in February 2015 that says, no, it wasn't. It ended up in South Sunset Park. But the SCA was looking all over the district for new sites. And there's 5 or 6 listed. And by the way, everything here, all these documents I'm referencing, including this presentation, are online at the CEC's website under resources and then under school admissions, and all the way at the scroll down, and there's a section on MS 936, and all of these documents are linked there. And I feel that's particularly important to point out because while we do care about the area that it's in now, the notion has been raised that that by making it a district-wide school, it was somehow changing the original intention. And for the middle school, as the second bullet points out, it was always intended to be a district-wide school addressing district-wide overcapacity. That's mentioned a number of times in ODP presentations. And I think that point is fairly accepted. And then the final point, and this is the one that I understand is controversial, is sort of the audition nature of the school, but there's clear evidence that the original intent was to set up an audition-based program. And there's two sets of public meeting minutes, one from a CEC meeting in August 2017, one from November 2017, the DLT meeting, where it was referenced that the intention of the school was to use an audition-based process, talent-based audition process. Now, those are meeting minutes, and they've, we've come through the admission process because of 2019, 2020. Mayor de Blasio's administration changed the admission process, but all I'm saying here is that there was original intent. That was in the past, and we are where we are today with the school. The other issue that was brought to my attention was District 75 seats at MS 936. And what I found is that the idea was explored, but I've also found that the idea was not approved by ODP. There was a couple of presentations where the Office of District Planning said, essentially, we like the idea, we're looking at it, but we don't think 936 is the best place for it. And there's a presentation where they, you can read the quotes here. They're looking for a plan to address the need for additional D75 seats in the district. And then they had a further set of written comments. Again, it's all online, where the ODP basically said, temporarily putting a D75 special class in this building and then resiting to a new location is not optimal for students, emphasizing stability, continuity, and that they were looking for opportunities elsewhere. MS 936 does not currently maintain a D75 program. There is on the DOE school quality snapshot, it says D75 inclusion program, but it's unclear how that got there, given the history and given the fact that they do not currently enroll any D75 students. And then finally, it is worth noting that a few months ago, it was announced that there was a lease signed, a long-term lease signed for at Our Lady of Guadalupe site for a new D75 middle school program, which I think if the numbers match up right, I think addresses the middle school need in the district. So where do we go from here is what I've been thinking about and trying to just sort of think over. And again, this is my position, and it's more or less in, at least on the district-wide arts audition-based school, it's in line with our resolution we passed. But I think, the goal for me is twofold. One is maintain the audition process at the school, district-wide, focus on the arts, but continuously evaluate the admission policies. We've talked about, focusing on various subgroups, students with IEPs, ELLs. I think the really important thing is to see what kind of student base applies and start from there. And I'll share more thoughts on that timing in a minute. And then also address the needs that have been raised with us. And that's to improve middle school options for South Sunset Park relative to current and projected need. And I think there's a lot going on now with enrollment changes and shifts, and we have a new school opening. And so anyway, those are the two sort of goals that I'm going to be thinking a lot about. And these are just, again, this is brainstorming only, but potential solutions for middle school seats. Ideas that have either been brought to my attention or that I've thought of, cross-district rezoning. Again, a lot of this probably has more complexity than I'm sharing here, but it's stuff I'm going to explore. District 15 sends some elementary school students to some of our middle schools. I'd like to explore if the reverse is true. Rezoning, we have a new intermediate school opening in 2024 on 86th Street, as everyone knows. Are there rezoning configurations we could do that would help alleviate the issues that are being experienced? Can we convert PS 939 to a middle school if the numbers, I think enrollment numbers have declined at a lot of these area schools? And so is there possibility of converting 939 to a middle school? Is there a possibility of moving the arts school to the Nathan's site in 2024 if we decide that South Sunset Park is in such high need of middle school seats for general population? Always welcome other ideas. I'm very happy when I get emails. And the timing on this is, and again, this is sort of my time. I've talked about this with superintendent, and of course, there's lots of factors and lots of stakeholders here. So this is just what Steve is sharing, but things could obviously change depending on other parties. But I'm considering having ODP and the Office of Student Enrollment at our April meeting to talk about, flesh out some more of these ideas. May, June is kind of a key stakeholder engagement period. Summer of 2022, I think, at least in my mind, is a good time to be evaluating the existing admissions process and sort of see yeah, and sort of think about things from that perspective once we know the student body that's enrolled there. And then fall of 22, hopefully have the final admissions process to share with district families. Again, final process is up to the DOE, it's up to superintendent, but this is how I'm organizing the issue in my mind. The CEC welcomes thoughts, suggestions, and there is our contact information. Did council members have any questions on this?
Steve?
Yep.
So I would just want to, I just want to piggyback on what you said. In the fall of 2017, I was president of the District 20 President's Council. I attended those DLT meetings, and I can swear under oath that that's 100% accurate, that school was definitely conceived to be an arts school with district-wide audition admissions. So I just want to confirm that. I also want to ask, I don't know who to ask, I've asked this before and has never been able to get a straight answer. We know the zoning within a specific district is one thing that we could fudge with, right? What about like the bigger picture? How do we like take a portion of 15, give it a 20, give all these 21s and move these things around? Who is responsible to do that? Is it the state? Is it done on a regular basis? Is it done with the census? I mean, what is behind that? Any clue who would know?
Yeah, let's ask ODP. We're supposed to, I've reached out to them and let's reach out to them on that to start with. But I think it's probably a large, I'm suspecting if you're talking about changing district borders, that's probably a big deal. But I was just talking about cross district share, sending some kids, not changing the borders, but just if you can send some elementary.
I know what you were talking about. I was asking for the bigger question. To
I
see
know. I don't know, but it's
no one knows, it seems, because I've asked this question and never gotten an answer.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Okay. Thanks for bringing it to my attention, though. I'll keep it in mind. Any other council member questions before we move on to public speaking? And I'm going to stop my sharing so I can see if there's hands. Okay, no hands up. Let's conclude. That concludes the president's report. Natalia, do we have anyone signed up for public speaking?
I'm trying to get in the new Mandarin interpreter.
Okay, take your time. Kevin, are you able to run the timer the way you did at the last meeting?
Oh my God.
It's okay if you're not. It's okay.
I can do a manual timer, but I cannot do the last time one because that one I had to set it up before.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't.
It's okay. I can do a manual timer 2 minutes. Yep.
Thanks.
No problem. Just give me 1 second. Let me bring it up. Okay.
So far, I only have one person who signed up to speak, Michelle Magnus.
Okay. We can unmute Michelle and.
Okay. It seems like I'm the only reoccurring one.
We appreciate it. Michelle.
I'm invested. I got 3 kids coming in through the DOE system. So, but I'll try. I wrote it down faster. So let's see. So I've been a parent in the DOE system since 2017. So the last 2 years I have, it has been an eye opener into the failure of our public school system. It has become a business focused on data instead of content. We invest millions of money to collect data that is not supported by a robust solution that addresses the core education. In addition, our core education has limited children to just math and ELA. We are missing a huge gap in our education in the sciences. The fact that not every public school has a science teacher is mind-blowing. I'm looking to get more science on a daily basis in my child's school, and I'm learning that just the basic budget given to each school does not cover the cost of science teacher. That's appalling. Our PTA should not have to fund this. We're funding charter schools to cut the cost of paying teachers and pensions. That money can be better used to our current schools and provide science teachers, in addition to providing more D75 schools, which is this common thing I hear, and especially in our district, that's missing. Also providing our citizens a well-paying union job and with security. Go unions. The DOE is failing our children, and I hope you relay to the chancellor the importance of STEM on a daily basis to give our children a chance to compete in this world. Now, in regards to iReady, I'm just curious how much of the iReady is being pushed by the DOE or our superintendent to be used during the school year, and not just for the assessment. Like, I know the assessment is being pushed, but are they looking to add it more on a daily basis? And if so, is the DOE going to be paying for this? Also, has there been more data? Does the iReady data that match what teachers actually assess on their own? And what's the feedback on that from teachers? Do they find it almost the same? And just, you were talking about parent involvement. I was looking to find out, how is the chancellor going to involve parents more into the decision-making process of their education? Does he have a plan? Because what I noticed, most politicians and heads of things, they all identify the problem, but nobody comes with a solution and a plan. So when you go to your meeting, find that plan, and that's all my notes.
No, that's awesome, Michelle. Thank you. And Natalia, you said Michelle's the only speaker?
Yeah, when I looked at the
That's all. If that's all we've got, it's only her name on the sign-in form.
Yep.
So because it's only one speaker tonight, and Superintendent, if you're willing, I wouldn't mind just if you could respond to some of the questions Michelle raised, if that's okay. I can certainly relay them to you. I wrote them down, but if you don't mind, just because we have one speaker and she's a regular, and there were some interesting questions, I thought.
Sure.
The first one was interesting. Her question about the basic school budget does not cover the cost of science teacher, and some schools in the district don't have a science teacher. Not every school has a science teacher. Does that, what do you say?
I'd have to ask Michelle what she's referring to there.
Okay. Michelle, Michelle, if you're welcome to come back.
So no, our school does a great job, and they cover our science teacher. That was more of an intended remark to the DOE in the whole. Sometimes I address just the whole failure of the DOE. So I know there's some DOE schools that do not have science teachers. We do come from a really good district that does support the sciences. So that was not targeted directly to our district. I support all. But yes, our teacher, my daughter's school, shout out to Miss Gadelius, I think she's here. She does a really good job at PS 185 trying to get science, and she supports more programs. So I just want to make that clear.
And the iReady, your iReady question, that's probably one that superintendent can answer.
Yeah.
So the Department of Education this year has funded academic screeners. So iReady is one of those. There's several hundred schools across the DOE who have elected to use iReady as their screener. There are other screeners that are in use for different grade levels and different options. So for example, there are schools in the DOE who are using something called Map Growth, which was another option that we could have gone with. And there are some schools we're a district where we have elected as a district to administer the same diagnostic screener across all schools. There are some schools that don't administer the same assessment as other schools in their district. So the DOE is paying for the diagnostic component of iReady. So the test, basically, the assessment, is not being paid for out of school budgets. That's being paid for by Central. As far as the instructional component, that's an option that schools have. I don't promote iReady as a tool or a resource that schools should or shouldn't be using. It's the principal's choice to use the tool for instructional purposes.
And to the question about what's been the general feedback from teachers on the efficacy of iReady?
To do what? To assess or to?
Well, how are they using? They're using it to assess, and then in theory to improve. Kind of like the questions I was asking before. How do you use this in the schools? Do they think it's an effective assessment tool? And then
So I've received in general, positive feedback on the assessment as a screener to be able to find out more about children in a quick way. I've gotten positive feedback about its grouping capabilities to be able to provide information on student groupings. I've gotten good feedback from teachers on being able to use it to look at the existing curriculum and highlight specific components of the curriculum that would be areas that could really be supportive of students in the classroom. I've gotten good feedback from teachers who've said that the prerequisite component, this is a report in iReady from the diagnostic assessment that essentially says, in order for this child or these group of children to progress to proficiency in this particular area, they would want to do these 4 things. So I've gotten good feedback on that. And in general, I've gotten good feedback on it doing a lot of data collecting without and allowing teachers to focus more on their planning and not and really reduce the amount of time that they're collecting data. That was one of the kind of primary goals when we were looking around for an assessment that we would use district-wide, was to be a resource that was as accurate as possible, right? It's one assessment, so we're not living and dying by one assessment, but we wanted to make sure that that one assessment that we were administering across the entire district placed the least amount of work on the part of a classroom teacher, so the classroom teacher could dedicate their time to using the tool to inform their instruction and to support individual students, groups of students, as well as the whole class.
And then I'll sort of respond the comments Michelle raised about parental involvement. The one thing that I've heard a number of times from Chancellor Banks is, and he said this on Friday a number of times, he said, bring me specific solutions, right? We can all point out the issues. He wants specific solutions. And one of the points that we're going to make on Thursday is these CEC resolutions that get passed is historically a very, very poor track record of any response from the DOE for most of them. And that's going to be one of our key points on Thursday is these represent ideas that a council has voted on and approved. We at least ask for a response, acknowledgement, because there's a lot of specific ideas in these resolutions. So that's just one insight I'll leave you with on your question about parental involvement and what Banks is promising. Natalia, do we have any more speakers?
Steve, can I jump in too?
Sure, go ahead, Vito.
So Michelle, I'm curious, the thing with the STEM, which I love that, I agree with it 110%. And I think most of the District 20 schools, like you said, are doing STEM. So the broader question is, DOE-wide, there's some narrative that there are some schools that aren't able to provide certain things like librarians or some other art programs. And there's some narrative that if there should be a basic program, irrespective of how many kids are in the school, that the school has to provide. And maybe even that some things don't even come out of the principal's budget, much like the nurse's salary doesn't come out of the principal's budget. That this is just, every school has to have a librarian, it's paid for out of some other general fund, and so on and so forth. Is that something that you were thinking in your head as far as what you would like to see?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm piecing things together of information I've been gathering of these meetings, of my PTA meetings. And so what my understanding is that the schools are given a budget and it's up to the principal to decide how to spend it. So whether it's on a librarian, a science teacher, more IEP help or whatever, it's mind blowing to me that just on a basic level, you want equity and equality and inclusion for all. That basic budget should include science teachers. That basic budget should include librarians. Like that should be Like when you're a union worker, right? You have a base. That should be
Yes.
part of that base. That should be included to every school is a librarian, a science teacher, an art teacher. We're fighting over MS9, which was the school name,
936.
MS936. For all that, it's an extracurricular activity focused school, when that should be provided on a daily basis to all schools, to every child. Like that should be, if they're talking about reinventing the public school system, because our kids are competing with private schools, Catholic schools, Russia, China, like kids from all these countries, and we're failing because we've taken our core education and lowered it so that we could say, oh, every kid's passing. Every kid's passing ELA and math because we lowered our standards so low. We're not challenging these kids. Every kid, I'm a big believer. GMT should be in every school. Every school should have that opportunity. Every child should have art. Every child should have science. Every child should have engineering. Like just as the age, age appropriate, but it's just, this should be a basic package.
So
to
superintendent,
each
then,
school.
is there basic things that every school needs to have irrespective of funding? I know 936 only has one AP. Does she even have one AP because she's such a small school? What is the mandatory positions that must be in every school? Is there such a thing?
You have to have a principal. You have to have classroom teachers. And then from there, it depends on the grade level. Like in elementary schools, teachers can teach common branches. They can teach all 4 subjects. They can, in theory, they're in theory licensed by the state to teach all subjects to students in grades 1 to 6. They don't necessarily need to have a science teacher based off of state law and the teacher licensing. A science-specific license doesn't begin until, I believe you can get an extension, or I believe there's some specialized licenses for elementary and middling into middle school, so kind of like some 5 to 9 licenses, 5th grade to 9th grade licenses. But in general, your subject-specific licenses don't start until 7th grade and are 7 to 12.
So then in elementary school, then what we're talking about is scheduling, and we're talking about
it. I don't want to overgeneralize and make a broad topic, oversimplified. There's a lot that goes into it, but just on the science teacher thing alone, and like the question of like what's required, it's required to have classroom teachers who are licensed to teach the subjects that align to the standards that the state requires.
Do you know what grade they were? Do we require a science class every couple of days in elementary school?
There's certain, so the DOE, and you can find these requirements on the school website. There's periods per week that subjects need to be taught.
Thank you, sir.
we're gonna cut it off here, but it's a great discussion, and not every meeting will be run this way, but it's kind of equivalent to at the end of an in-person meeting, maybe having a little extended conversation. So, and I think Michelle's point about the lowering the standards is a really good one. It's appalling to me that the high school graduation rate keeps going up and up and up, despite what we all know is happening with learning during the pandemic, but that's another topic, and we definitely want to follow up. And I think that's it for tonight. Natalia, any other speakers since we last checked?
No, I haven't seen anybody else.
Okay, great.
I haven't seen anybody raise their hands either.
Okay, all good. It's 9:30, a little past 9:30. We can probably, I will make a motion to adjourn the meeting. Oh, let me just get our next, Natalia, what's the next meeting date? Can we just announce that?
Ooh, hold on a minute. It is April. 13th.
April 13th, okay. I'm just checking one thing here. Okay, all right, we're good. Is Gada's not here, is she? Gada never made it, right? She was excused.
No.
She's good. Because I know Ramadan starts April 2nd, it ends May 2nd, but it's really just the start and finish that I think we would have to try to work around, but we're right in the middle, so there's not much we can do there. Okay, I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Seconded.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any
Yep.
opposed?
Bye.
Okay, thanks, everyone, and have a good night.
Thank you.
To see us end before 10.
Yes.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Night,
Lisa.
everyone.
Good, everybody.
And thank you to the interpreters for staying so long.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Good night.
Hmm.